This is the Rich Eisen Show.
I love this show.
It's a great show.
They're just so much fun.
Live from the Rich Eisen Show studio in Los Angeles.
I would rather go to battle with you two guys than two other guys.
Okay.
The Rich Eisen Show. Today's guests from NFL Films, Greg Cosell, Arizona Cardinals head coach, Kliff Kingsbury, four-time NBA champion, John Salley, Pro Football Hall of Famer, Brett Favre, plus from the FXX comedy Dave, rapper Lil Dicky. And now, it's Rich Eisen.
Welcome to this edition of the Rich Eisen Show. We are live again here in Los Angeles, California on a Tuesday morning. We've got ourselves a fun show in store. 5 guests, 5 of them. First up will be Greg Cosell, our friend from NFL Films, as we're now just a couple of days removed from the NFL draft being over. Let's get his take. He was one of the more lukewarm individuals on Tua Tagovailoa. And he will be joining us here on this show to talk about that pick and all the others. Kliff Kingsbury will be joining us, we assume, from his couch with no socks on and loafers and a beautiful fire going on in the 100-degree weather.
We really
on the other
need
side of the
a virtual tour of this
window.
house. I have so many questions.
Well, Kliff Kingsbury will be joining us from the Arizona Cardinals.
So many questions. Like, does he have neighbors? Is the house next door for sale? I mean, I'm interested.
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
I think that's my first question.
I don't know. There's many questions.
So many.
Well, you know, one would think how do you like DeAndre Hopkins might be the first one.
Oh, yeah, okay, fine. I mean, football-wise,
How about
I guess.
Isaiah Simmons being drafted?
Yeah. I mean, my second question is, why do you need a fire when it's 100 degrees out?
Okay, that's...
I mean, I think that's fair.
There's two approaches,
Okay.
is basically what we're saying.
Yeah.
When Kliff Kingsbury joins us at the top of our second hour of this program. Right after him, John Salley will join us. And hopefully we will shake hands at the end of it. 4-time NBA champion.
He seems to be the level-headed one of that
He does.
Pistons group, right?
I love Spider Sally. Good dude. Good human.
Yeah, he's good.
He'll be joining us as he and his Pistons and Isaiah Thomas have been all over the place in the last 48 hours because of The Last Dance, episodes 3 and 4 that aired on Sunday night. Brett Favre's going to join us. Now, the time for him is 2 Eastern, 1 o'clock Central. Brett is currently on a golf course right now.
Uh-oh.
No, I mean, this is the way Brett does, you know, this sort of stuff. It's just
Takes you back to Favre watch, Rich.
I would say if I had my druthers, I'd rather him be on a golf course than on a duck blind or,
That's true.
you know, somewhere where he's hunting or whatever, because then there might be a reception problem or
He's whispering the whole time.
He has agreed to do it. He's like, I will do it. I will do the show. He is the literally first person I thought of after Aaron Rodgers watched Jordan Love get drafted on Thursday night. That was after Favre left our draft-a-thon broadcast. What a bummer. I mean, you want to talk about timing.
Yeah, that would have been.
I guess we had Bakhtiari on when that happened. So
True.
The guy who's actually professionally paid to block and protect for Aaron Rodgers. And his point was that Aaron Rodgers is going to get that much better because when Rodgers is focused or he's got like he's a little bit PO'd, look out. So Favre will join us and then Lil Dicky in hour number 3. We were on Dave as ourselves. We played ourselves. We were very in our roles here on the Rich Eisen Show set.
On brand.
I do love it when we pop up in places and people are like, what are you doing right there? Where'd you come from right there?
Yeah, that's what we do.
Correct. So there we have it. And
Episode 4, if you're not caught up
Okay.
yet, stay tuned for us.
So Lil Dicky will be on. He's been on this show before. He was on this show about 4 some odd years ago.
Yeah, he was on a few years ago.
When he was just breaking out, if you will. Yeah. And the show, Dave, is executive produced by and written and so on and so forth by our buddy Jeff Schaefer, who does Curb Your Enthusiasm. And he said that Lil Dicky and Larry David aren't, there's some similarities between the two of them.
I mean, if you watch the show, it's hilarious.
He has
you
also
can definitely see that.
informed me of something to ask him. I asked Jeff yesterday. Yeah, like what would you like me to ask Lil Dicky?
You know, he's a huge Philly sports fan, so I'm
I know
really
that.
curious about what he thinks about the Eagles draft.
Right, and Andy Reid, and he's a big Sixers guy too.
Yep.
There was a scene in Show 6 about him eating company chicken, his favorite dish in real life.
Okay.
And they had a scene where he was visiting his parents in Show 6, and he wanted the company chicken served because it's his favorite food. And Jeff warned him it's a long shoot, and Lil Dicky apparently didn't pace himself.
Oh.
So that's something to ask him later.
Okay.
On. Lots to talk about with him. And you, 844-204-RICH, number to dial here on channel 211, Sirius XM, Dan Patrick Radio. We love being on after DP is done with his Danettes and his show. He had Bobby Sags on today. Our good buddy Bobby Saget was on today. And then we're also on our YouTube stream, youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show, and BCSN will pick this show up at 1 Eastern time, our second hour with Kliff, Kingsbury, John Salley, Brett Favre, and Lil Dicky. And obviously having Brett on to talk about what's going on with Aaron Rodgers is significant. And I will say this at the top of our second hour, too, when we get our NBC audience coming in. Would you say I killed the Jordan Love pick? I don't think I did. I was wondering why.
You didn't love it.
Well, I mean, I didn't love it because you do have a window of opportunity to win right now, and that's when you have to go ahead and take advantage of your quarterback who's 36, and you've got a ton of talented wide receivers. You don't take one after the first round, which makes it more head-scratching that you didn't stay put at 30 and try to take somebody that you think you've got a high second-round grade on at the end, and you get a 1 year of extra control so Aaron Rodgers could maybe play with the guy till he's 41. And if Jordan Love starts winning games in 2022 and 2023 and they look as good as the Packers did in the first 2 years of Aaron Rodgers starting after Favre, then this is all crow that I'd be eating right now. I know, right? It doesn't matter. And they have every right to do it, and I think maybe you're looking over the steering wheel and you're making smart moves. So that's my take on it. They may have fallen head over heels in love with him, and that's what you need to do. I've said it over and over again. I want to be consistent that if he's your guy, you go get your guy, and it doesn't matter what you do to get your guy, because when it's all said and done, you forget about how you got the guy. And then, again, the rest of their draft is what makes it more the head scratcher that you take another player to back up another Aaron on your team. And the running back with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, along with Josiah DeGuara, the tight end out of Cincinnati, where Travis Kelce went to school. These are guys that you could maybe add some firepower. If this guy DeGuara is a Kyle Juszczyk guy and Dillon adds a 1-2 punch and the running game is just as stout with Dillon in as with Aaron Jones, and then that will help things out and the offensive line gets shored up. But again, no wide receivers. And I did see a stat on Twitter today that we'll bring up later on about the number of first-round receivers catching touchdown passes in Aaron Rodgers' career. Did you see that on Twitter today?
I did not.
Stay tuned for that. So put it all together, and it's a head scratcher. It really, really is. But it doesn't mean that they can't win it this year at all. I mean, this is, again, if we're going to keep talking about how the Niners were 6 minutes shy of winning the Super Bowl, we should talk about the Packers being 1 game shy of making it. And they made it almost as the 1 seed. And they made it almost as the 1 seed without Davante Adams. And the coach and the quarterback didn't have any sort of public spats that many of us, I was one of them that thought that Aaron Rodgers would be difficult for Matt LaFleur to connect with in his first year as a head coach, period. But I say all this to just bring up this point. any rumors that Aaron Rodgers is going to be traded right now is friggin' nuts. Are you? I'm seeing a bunch of articles post-draft.
Sure.
Veterans that could be on the move. Veterans to watch to be on the move.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere.
He's going nowhere.
It would be a massive cap hit for them to move him now or after this season.
Forget about even the monetary aspect of it, which obviously we can't.
Is a huge factor.
Right. But even put that all together, the Jordan Love evaluation, the evaluation of Jordan Love to a man, and again, we'll ask Greg Cosell in about 5 minutes, to a man, woman, and if there was even a child who was evaluating this, would tell you that Jordan Love, especially last year at Utah State, his numbers dropping off. He said when he was on our show the day of the draft, the day he was drafted by the Packers, that was the most often asked question he received was what happened last year, because his numbers dropped off in his final year at Utah State from the previous year when he was much more dynamic and much more efficient with a lot fewer interceptions and turnovers. And his answer was, just had to be better. And anybody who evaluated can tell you the talent around him wasn't as significant.
Right.
And coaching, blah, blah, blah. Greg Cosell, again, will bring that up shortly. But not a single person said if Jordan Love's drafted, he's a day one starter, week one starter. Nobody. The only day one starter flat out drafted in the 2020 draft is Joe Burrow. Not even Tua. The conversation about Tua is with the Dolphins is, hey, they could take their time. Certainly if he needs more time to rehab from his hip injury, you got Ryan Fitzpatrick. You got the anti-tank. You got the guy who's, honestly, like a guy who would be playing in the NFL in the Mad Max post-apocalyptic world. He'll always be getting a start in the NFL. As long as he wants one.
No doubt about that.
So they could stick there, and Justin Herbert is clearly not going to start for the Los Angeles Chargers in week one. It's going to be Tyrod Taylor's job because that's what the Chargers have been saying. And nobody in what's going on in our COVID-19 world is going to get the reps and OTAs and training camp that would take a rookie and give him a platform from which to actually compete for a starting job with a lead pipe wielding long-time professional like Ryan Fitzpatrick or Tyrod Taylor. Not going to happen. Joe Burrow's just going to get the gig in Cincinnati. Jordan Love's not. I don't understand where that Aaron Rodgers could be traded or Belichick's going to get Aaron Rodgers. Not on this green earth.
Well, it's just Twitter doing the Twitter thing.
No, I understand, but it's a ton of it. And there's a lot of fans who are thinking, well, the Packers are drafting Aaron Rodgers' successor, so that automatically makes him expendable. And it doesn't at all.
It doesn't for 2 years.
Well, what it does is give him the runway from which to make the Packers' decision in 2022 a very troublesome one in the same way that Tom Brady did with Jimmy G. That's it.
Yeah, 100%.
And Jordan Love could turn into Jimmy G and all of this conversation we're having right now, the head scratcher this, head scratcher that. It's just the first. It's the first round grade, and it's the trading up to get him. That's what got me. That's what got me. That's what getting a lot of people. But I'm not sitting here saying that Aaron Rodgers is suddenly expendable. That's crazy talk.
Yeah, just compared to the Patriots, just one other step. They've drafted a ton of quarterbacks in the Tom Brady era, none in the first round. So that's why it's such a red flag here. The first round, like you said, and then the trading up. That's if I'm Aaron Rodgers. That's got to annoy me to no end.
And then the not calling.
You're not connecting.
Not calling. Prior. That has been confirmed. Yeah. The not connecting after could be seen as, well, he's not,
To voicemail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Putting Gutekunst straight to voicemail, unless they didn't reach out at all to him. And I don't know the answer to that, and I would love to get Brian Gutekunst on the show to talk about it.
We'll find out at some point. That stuff leaks.
844-204-RICH is the number for you to dial. We'll take your calls throughout this show. Kliff Kingsbury, John Salley, Brett Favre, and Lil Dicky. Dave Bird will be here on the show. Do you have a poll question over there, Christopher? Or are you fashioning one right now?
No, I mean, I can work on one if you're interested.
Well, I mean, we do have a lot of real estate in this first hour, but it's currently about to be occupied by our friend from NFL Films and one of the top evaluators for an NFL draft, and we're thrilled to have him here on the show once again. Post-draft, we had him on pre-draft. Greg Cosell, how are you, Greg?
Rich, what's going on, my friend?
The story of the draft is what?
Oh, boy. I mean, a couple of things stood out to me. I thought the Denver Broncos draft really stood out because I think that they took the approach that if you're in the same division with the Kansas City Chiefs, you're not going to win with defense, even though Vic Fangio is the coach. You're going to have to win by outscoring them, and you're going to have to try to match their speed. That really stood out to me.
Okay. What about the non-drafting of wide receivers by the Green Bay Packers? What do you think what about their strategy in their draft, Greg?
My sense is, and again, I'm just giving you my feeling about Matt LaFleur, knowing his background, that he comes kind of from a Kyle Shanahan background, spent a lot of time with Kyle. I think the feeling is that he wants to sort of transform that offense into an offense that starts with the run game and works off of that, which it's interesting that we live in a time where people don't talk about the run game at all and, in fact, view the drafting of running backs as if you've committed some kind of sin. But I think he wants to take that approach, run the football, work off that, have a rhythmic passing game. And not that receivers aren't important, but that you can run that kind of offense in his mind without having 3 or 4 really good receivers. They obviously have one really good one in Devontae Adams, and they have a tight end who I think they really like in Jace Sternberger, who was a rookie a year ago. But I think that's the approach that Matt LaFleur wants to take.
I guess, and then let me take the same, because the same approach we're talking about with Belichick about why in the world would they just go into the season with Brian Hoyer and with Jarrett Stidham? And I've been sitting here saying, don't sleep on Stidham in terms of what he can do, in terms of how Belichick's evaluating him, in terms of how he's looked in practice. So, I mean, obviously we all know the last time we assumed somebody going into year 2 because of a quarterback situation and what that guy turned into. I'm not saying Stidham's going to have a Brady-like career, but the whole point, and I do want to get to that very subject later on, but what about the receivers the Packers currently have? Are we missing anything on that front where they could sit here and say that there's a second year or a third year jump that they're planning on having from these guys?
I'm sure that they think so. And that's why they did not draft receivers. The way the draft works, and it's funny, and obviously we live in a time where there's no other sports right now. So the draft, which is big to begin with, took even more significance because there's nothing else going on. And with social media and everybody now being a draft expert, is the assumption is that when you draft a player, for the most part, that you're filling a need. And it doesn't always work that way. Not all players make it, even first-round picks. We know that. So maybe they feel good about their receivers. I'm not defending Matt LaFleur. I'm just trying to understand what his mindset is. And we're not going to know that until we play football. If you last year said about the San Francisco 49ers that they would get to the Super Bowl and Raheem Mostert would be their leading rusher for the season, people would probably have laughed, don't you think?
I'm laughing right now at the sheer notion of putting me in that position. You're not wrong. I mean, look.
No, again, I'm not smarter than anybody else, Rich. That's not the point. But I tend to try to think reasonably about this and not just have reactions where, oh, that's terrible, or that's great, or, oh, that's a bad pick. I like for these things to play out a bit. The one thing from doing this, and I know, is the people who do this for a living work a lot of hours doing this. Are they always right? Of course not. None of us are always right, but these people work at it pretty hard. There's reasons, and I try to think in terms of the reasons as opposed to just having a gut reaction that it's great or bad.
Greg Cosell here on the Rich Eisen Show. What'd you think of the Jordan Love pick then?
Well, I have a pretty strong feeling about that.
Okay.
And it's probably not one that a lot of people will share, but I think it also relates to Matt LaFleur and his background. He wants a timing rhythm pass game. Say what you want about Aaron Rodgers. He's super talented. We know that. He'll be a Hall of Famer. But Aaron Rodgers, over the last number of years, has evolved, or one could say devolved, into a player that plays a lot outside of structure and outside of rhythm. And when you get a chance to watch the coaching tape, as I do, and this is not an interpretation, this is what the tape tells you, he leaves a lot of throws on the field within the timing of the offense that are there to be thrown. And I guarantee that bothers Matt LaFleur. And given the age of Rodgers, and who knows how long Rodgers can play, the age of Rodgers and Matt LaFleur clearly coming off last season, having probably pretty much carte blanche at this point, I think he's looking to say, hey, I'm going to start to put this offense together the way I want it to look. And while Rodgers is great, I'm a little frustrated with the way our offense plays out. And that's just my personal opinion again, but I feel pretty strongly about that.
So, okay, I'm going to follow this strand here. You're saying that LaFleur had a year of evaluating Aaron Rodgers, and thus we should view the Jordan Love pick through that prism? Is what you're saying?
Yeah, think of it this way. 2 years ago, Garoppolo got hurt in San Francisco, and Nick Mullins came in, and I'm not suggesting Nick Mullins is a Super Bowl quarterback, but he executed the offense at an NFL level, okay? Obviously, the 49ers didn't win a ton of games. They had other issues 2 years ago as well. Jimmy Garoppolo this year, who, by the way, not a lot of people think is a great quarterback by any means, came in and say what you want. That team got to the Super Bowl. So Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback of a Super Bowl team. So I think Matt LaFleur comes from that school. Let's get a quarterback who will be a ball distributor, will execute the offense as it's structured, does have second reaction ability when needed, because it is needed at times in the NFL today for sure, which Jordan Love, by the way, does have. And let's get that kind of quarterback in here. In other words, when I work 18 hours a day and put my offense together, I would really like it executed that way. And while Aaron Rodgers is as good as there is and making certain kinds of plays, he leaves a lot of throws on the field that are there to be made, and that's very frustrating for a coach.
And yet, if LaFleur is coming from the Kyle Shanahan system, Kyle Shanahan's team is the one that traded up to go get a receiver in the first round, not a new quarterback. You know, and I know that Garoppolo is a different.
And it's funny because when they made that trade, that's the receiver I thought they would go for, because Brandon Ayuk is a great example of a guy that is a movement receiver. You want to get the ball to him on the move, and that's what the 49er offense is. No team used motion as much as the 49ers, which of course allows for free releases by receivers to get into their routes. No team threw the ball in the middle of the field between the numbers more than the Niners, and that's what Brandon Ayuk is. So they saw somebody that they really, really wanted, and they went and got him. And it's, well, of course, we'll find out how it plays out, but that style receiver fits the 49ers offense perfectly.
Now, I can only wonder if Aaron Rodgers is sitting at home right now on youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show watching us right now because, you know, why wouldn't you?
Well, he probably hates my guts.
No,
that's okay.
Greg. No, it's not that he hates your guts, but I'd be sitting there thinking, you know, I can do this off. I can run pretty much any offense. I know what the forte is of the offense and what my forte is, but he could still hit Brandon Ayuk on the run as anybody else, and he would prefer it. You know, he'd prefer to have somebody like that as opposed to, as he's turning 36, somebody that they, you know, the coaching staff covets. Like, why can't they covet somebody that would help Aaron Rodgers in his final, you know, maybe extended window of opportunity in the spot where he's put his blood, sweat, and tears for another role? No,
and I understand your point. And by the way, I'm sure more people feel that way than what I said. But quite honestly, I think the tape shows this. I've been talking about this with Aaron Rodgers for a number of years because that's what the tape shows. And again, then you get caught up in always feeling like you have to qualify it because clearly Aaron Rodgers, from a talent perspective, is maybe as good as we've ever seen in the game, and some of the plays he makes, only Aaron Rodgers can make.
Tape shows what, though? So what are you referring to about the tape that plays into all this right now, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things you always notice with the Aaron Rodgers, and this was true with McCarthy as well, and then McCarthy took all the abuse for it, is that he just leaves some throws on the field that are there. And that's the way he plays, and then he makes special plays. So there's a balance there, and every coach will see it differently. And I think Matt LaFleur is in a position where he probably feels he has as much control as he'll ever have because he just got to the NFC Championship game as a rookie head coach, and he probably feels, hey, I now have a chance to sort of turn this offense into what I want it to look like.
So I guess let's finish this subject by saying what you see on film, and just by supposing what and knowing coaches as well you do, and knowing the sport and inside film rooms as well as you do, Greg Cosell. What do you think the time frame is on all this? I mean, where
probably a year.
So you're saying,
and unless of course they get to the Super Bowl, I mean that changes everything.
Of course,
but I think if they. And who knows? The thing I don't know is Aaron Rodgers' contract situation. I don't follow that as closely.
He's got 4 years left.
Some people.
He's got 4 years left. 4.
Oh, so I mean, theoretically, they would have to get rid of him, and who knows? I guess it will depend on this year. You have a similar situation, a very odd situation in Philadelphia, which is kind of weird too, as to what they did. It's a little different because Carson Wentz has not finished the last 3 seasons, but they just paid Carson Wentz a lot of money, and when you draft a quarterback in the second round, that's not a throwaway pick.
Well, let's get to that then here on the Rich Eisen Show with you, Greg Cosell. That's right in your own backyard there at NFL Films is what the Philadelphia Eagles were doing. We had Howie Roseman on yesterday. He said he wouldn't give me the answers to the test when I asked him if there would be some sort of Taysom Hill-type package role for Jalen Hurts, while Carson Wentz is clearly the starting quarterback there, which he flat out reiterated that he is. What do you think of this pick?
Even if there was a true off-season, there would not be a quarterback competition this year. But when you draft a player in the second round, a quarterback, and that's what Jalen Hurts is, he's a quarterback, you're not drafting him to be in a Taysom Hill role in the second round. Now, he may end up being in that role now, but that's a second-round pick. That's the 53rd pick in the draft. We know Wentz has not finished the last 3 seasons, and I love Wentz's talent. I think Wentz still has a chance to be one of the top 2 or 3 or 4 quarterbacks in this league, and there are times he plays that way. But they brought in Marty Morningwig. He's on their offensive coaching staff. I believe he was in Baltimore at the time they drafted Lamar Jackson. So it just makes you think. I don't have the answer. I don't have the answer to the test either, by the way, Rich. But when you draft a quarterback at 53 and you have a starting quarterback, it's somewhat similar to the Packers. Jordan Love was a first-round pick, and I believe they traded up for him. Did they not?
Yeah, Jordan Love. That's the point too, Greg. They traded up. They traded up. They
that
can't
guy's
even
going to be your quarterback. It's just a matter of when.
They can't just sit back. That's the whole point. Is they can't sit back and say, like Ted Thompson at least was able to. I got Favre coming on in the third hour. Hey, Brett. We're just sitting there at 24, and Aaron Rodgers fell to us, and he could have been first overall. What do you want us to do? You know what I'm saying? Like, they went and got Jordan Love, and they got him a spot after the spot the Niners jumped into to get the receiver I'm sure Aaron Rodgers was eyeing, if he was eyeing anybody. At that point of the draft.
I'm sure you know exactly who I'm talking about. I know I'm a little older than you, but I know you're a historian of all sports. It's the old Branch Rickey. You remember Branch Rickey?
Of course.
Yeah, it's the old Branch Rickey mantra of you get rid of players too soon, not too late. And, the fact is Aaron Rodgers is 36, and he did not have his best year. Didn't have a bad year, but he did not have his best year this particular season. And my guess is that Matt LaFleur really liked Jordan Love on tape. Clearly he did by what he did. We kind of know that. He told you that by what he did. And he's probably thinking that instead of playing this out, Bill Walsh did the same thing with Joe Montana and Steve Young. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you Jordan Love is Steve Young. We don't know that. But, I think that's probably the mindset that goes into this. You don't want to get stuck going too far along. Look at Pittsburgh right now. Look at Ben Roethlisberger. He's 38, I believe, something right around there, coming off a major, major injury and with no real off season now, and they don't really know. Is he going to play 16 games? Can he play 16 games? We don't know that.
Greg Cosell, NFL Films senior producer and also an analyst for fantasypoints.com, which is a brand new fantasy content site, which we'll get to in a second, right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Greg, we're fortunate here at this program to have talked to a ton of expert analysts and heard a ton of expert analysis, and I would absolutely group you in that. You clearly led the league in the most lukewarm recommendation for Tua Tagovailoa by far. By far. And when it all came down to it, the Dolphins looked at it, and I'm sure they were smoke screening like crazy, or were attempting to trade up for Burrow and clearly was not able to do it. Stood pat, didn't make a trade, and got Tua after all. What do you think about that pick, Greg?
Well, it's funny, Rich, that you say that. And and when you do as much radio and podcasts as I do,
yes,
I always try to be careful with how I say things. And it's funny you use the word lukewarm.
Yes.
I like Tua Tagovailoa, but I think he's a certain kind of quarterback. And there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, I've made the point numerous times that almost all quarterbacks are system quarterbacks. That's not a negative pejorative term. There's very few quarterbacks who are scheme transcendent. One could easily make the argument, and it's true, that Drew Brees is a system quarterback, and he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, as he should be. So it's not that I'm lukewarm on Tua. I did not see him as transcendent. I saw him as a very efficient system quarterback. And if he's used that way, which is the way I believe he should be used, with other factors such as a run game, the RPO game, quality receivers, then I believe he can be very, very effective. I just did not view his talent as transcendent.
Why? Honestly, you're one of the only few to do that. That's why I used lukewarm, by the way, in terms of that. Because I know you didn't kill the kid. You didn't kill the kid, and you don't do that sort of stuff.
No,
you just give your evaluation.
I think what I just said is not killing Tua.
No.
I think I'm kind of talking from a football perspective. I did not view him as having the same level of talent as Joe Burrow overall. I think both of them don't have particularly great arms. Tua is not a power thrower. I think Tua is a rhythm thrower. I think he's very accurate in the short to intermediate pass game. I think he's when the timing is there and he hits that back foot and the ball comes out, he's really, really good. And that's the way coaches coach anyway. No coach says, hey, rolls the ball out and say, let's run around and make plays today. That's the way the game is coached. I think he's very rhythmic. And I think that, he's got a few issues that need to be cleaned up. He has a strong tendency to climb the pocket when there's no pressure, and he moves himself into pressure. He creates his own pressure, and I'm curious to see how that plays out in the league because he's 6 feet tall. So there are some things he needs to clean up, but I think he'll be a very efficient player in the right circumstance. And clearly the Dolphins, my guess is they'll put him in the right circumstance, and he'll probably be playing sooner than later.
Greg Cosell here on the Rich Eisen Show. I've got Kliff Kingsbury joining me later in this show. What do you think of the Cardinals draft, starting with Isaiah Simmons on down? Josh Jones, Lecky Fotu, Rashard Lawrence out of LSU, a fourth-round selection, Evan Weaver, and then Eno Benjamin from right around their backyard at Arizona State.
Yeah, well, I think you have to tie in their draft with DeAndre Hopkins as well, because that was a big-time move, and now they have a pretty interesting receiving core. Isaiah Simmons, to me, is freakish. He's one of those guys. I don't believe there'll be an Isaiah Simmons who comes along every year when there's a guy who's almost 6'4", 238 pounds, and moves like that. I'll be very curious to see how he's deployed. I see him as a safety in a base defense, and then, of course, when you get to your sub-packages, he can line up in multiple positions depending on what you're doing that given week against the opponent. But I think he's a player who's a space player. Despite his size, he's not truly a physical player, but he's a freakish athlete. I think you want to get him away from the bodies, not where the bodies are. So that's why I believe he's more of a safety type in a base defense. His size says linebacker, but his style of play says safety.
Oh, man, I mean, I guess Tyrann Mathieu is somebody that people are saying, like a bigger Tyrann Mathieu has been the...
kind of what he is, or a Derwin James type. And Derwin James is probably more physical. but he's really kind of a big, freakish Tyrann Mathieu. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe he...
Obviously, it's pieces of a... We're just talking about the draft right here. But in terms of getting ready for the season, it's pieces of a puzzle. It's free agency. It's draft. It's also who you might be able to acquire right around the new league year. And DeAndre Hopkins with Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk and making... And, obviously, that's when... the move that they made last year also for Kenyon Drake, him signing his tender. Of course he's going to want to stay there. I have no question about that. Man, to be able to go ahead and turn that into the 2020 season with Kyler Murray in this mix off of the Offensive Rookie of the Year with Kingsbury, this is very exciting in the desert. Certainly with Simmons, if you think he would be on the level in between Chandler Jones and in front of Patrick Peterson. That is some serious
Chandler
business.
Jones may be the most overlooked great pass rusher in the league simply because he plays for Arizona, and no one ever talks about Arizona. But his sack totals over the last 4 or 5 years are off the charts. He is a great, great pass rusher.
He sure is. And in that division, I mean, no wonder the 49ers want to go out and get Trent Williams. What'd you make of that move? How significant is that move?
Really significant because I think with that offense, number one, it starts with the run game. And then in pass protection, you're dealing with a quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo who's very, very rhythmic. And the longer he stays in the pocket, in my view anyway, based on tape, the less effective he is. He is truly a rhythm player. So pass protection is absolutely critical. And even though he's not a statue, he's not really mobile in a strict sense. He's not going to make a lot of plays outside of the structure of the offense. So I thought that was a really, really good move. So you have to count that as well as part of what they did in the draft, because now they have a starting caliber left tackle who's coming in to replace a guy who's maybe well be a Hall of Famer in Joe Staley, and they don't miss a beat on the left side because Trent Williams at his best is a top, 2 or 3 left tackle in the league.
Oh, gosh, that's why I said John Lynch, the 49ers had the best draft. The best draft to me is, when or you could say the best draft the day after the draft with some level of certainty when players are selected that are widely viewed as significantly talented, and to take a second first-round selection that you get because you're flipping a player as talented as Buckner to a team that's right there in the middle of the first round, and you can then turn that pick into a younger, cheaper, or less expensive, let's use that phrase, version of him, while also paying somebody else on a defensive line that also includes D Ford, who's your second-round selection from this year, so you could kind of slot D Ford in there if you want, along with Nick Bosa from last year. I mean, I could go on and on as I did yesterday. And then you draft someone like Ayuk with the 4th-round selection you get to move out of that first-round spot, just one spot, so another team can select the offensive lineman that they wanted. And if you could sit there and go, man, you could have taken that offensive lineman, certainly with Staley retiring. No. You're going to flip that 4th rounder later on to the first for the wide receiver, and then get Trent Williams later on. I mean, that is, and I didn't even mention the other picks that they got.
Widely considered to be quality players. There's a certain group of those guys, and then there's a lot of guys who are are evaluated, by people like me, or and some of us sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong. Daniel Jeremiah, who's great at this.
Yes.
And now we have a ton of internet people who do this, and they start ripping picks or loving picks, and it's simply based on their view of the player, and that's okay. That's the fun of it. But I like to take the approach that these teams do a lot of work, and they have a pretty good sense of who they're drafting and why they're drafting. And of course, they don't all work out, but I like to think they know what they're doing.
A few more minutes left with you, Greg Cosell. Let's go back to let's take the pin out of the Patriots quarterback conversation. Now through all this, Belichick said afterwards it wasn't by design not taking a quarterback. And now it's Stidham, it's Hoyer, and the only other options would be a veteran. Should Andy Dalton pop free, which we're assuming might happen because Burrow is there. Clearly, there's Cam Newton out there who would be, one would say, the glitziest, most expensive, potentially. We're expecting to have Jameis sign with the Saints, so we could take him out of that mix. It sure looks like Stidham, don't you think?
Yeah, I do. and I think you'll see them kind of be a run-first team and a defense-based team and a special teams-based team. And, I think Belichick will work through that. They'll run the ball. They lost James Devlin, but they signed Dan Vitale, a fullback, so he'll fill that role. They'll use Sony Michel again. They still have Damian Harris, who was a third-round pick last year out of Alabama. I think they'll try to work the run game and have a pass game that is highly structured and is take some shots here and there, but they're not going to be built on the pass game. And unless, again, we don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of months, but if it stands the way it is now, I would expect that Stidham will line up and be their quarterback.
Yeah, it sure looks like that way. And what do you make of Jameis going to New Orleans? Greg, do you like it?
If he goes to the Saints, you mean?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think it's a really good spot for him because, I think at this point he needs probably to rehabilitate himself a little bit. He's certainly a talented guy, but I think the issues that he's had with turnovers have been problematic. And I think to be in the quarterback room and learn from Breeze, and who knows how long Drew plays, but I think it's a good move for Jameis, not only to be with Breeze, but to be with Sean Payton and to learn a really strong system that really defines things well through the use of personnel and the use of formations. The great thing about a guy like Breeze is as much as he's thrown the ball over the years, with very few exceptions, he doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. I think it's a really good spot for Jameis to rehabilitate because he's a talented kid. I think he'll end up being a starter in this league again at some point.
Okay, before I ask you one last draft question and send you off into this good Tuesday, what is fantasypoints.com, Greg? What are you involved with on this front?
Oh, it's a great site with John Hansen. John Hansen, who's probably, I think he was the first guy to start fantasy well over 20 years ago. And I've known John for, probably 15-plus years. I've worked with him for quite a while. And he just started this new site, and, he wanted me to be a part of it as far as, providing the X and O information. And that's basically what I'm going to do. Is I'm the X and O guy.
Okay.
I'm not a fantasy guy in the strict sense that I've got three teams and I see how they do every week. But I'll be providing the X and O information, and I'm really excited about it. It's a phenomenal site. It just came up, I think, last week, and already it's doing really well. So I have a ton of draft evaluations, and I'm going to continue doing those and put those out, and they'll go on fantasypoints.com.
Fantasypoints.com. Again. All right. So is there one pick or one aspect of the draft I didn't ask you about that you want to, I guess, throw a spotlight on? You thought it was a great value pick, to use the phrase. Anything that you want to throw out there?
Well, I tell you, the Cowboys are going to be really interesting on offense because they really have a ton of weapons. And, they scored, obviously they gained a lot of yards last year and scored a lot of points and didn't make the playoffs. So it'll be really interesting to see their offense because C.D. Lamb, he had about over 40% of his catches this year at Oklahoma came from the slot. And I actually think the best place for him to start his career is in the slot. I did not see the DeAndre Hopkins comparison that a lot of people threw out, but I think Lamb's a good prospect, and I think within the context of that offense with Cooper and Gallup's the overlooked guy. He gained over 1,000 yards receiving last year. I think the Cowboys have a really, really intriguing offense.
And then, what is it, Swaim, who's the tight end there now, too?
Well, no, it's Blake Jarwin, who I think they re-signed, and he's actually very, very athletic.
Right.
So they've got athletes all throughout. They still got Elliott.
Pollard.
We don't have time now, but this whole running game thing is I find fascinating the way people just dismiss the running game and running backs as if they don't even exist.
Well, we'll hit that at a later date. Appreciate the time, Greg. Thanks very much.
Rich, really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Of course. At Greg Cosell on Twitter, and check him out again on fantasypoints.com. Senior producer of NFL Films, Greg Cosell. He's seen a ton of tape. His stuff on Matchup, his stuff, as you can hear, we could literally spend all 3 hours with him.
Doubt.
Remember when, I think it was 2 years ago, right around the time the Cowboys acquired Amari Cooper, and everyone's wondering, why would Jerry flip a one for this guy?
Yeah.
And
I think someone in this space wondered the same thing.
He doubled, T.J. Jefferson? Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone was, because Amari Cooper, Look, and that's interesting why he's coming on talking about a fantasy site. We all view, many of the fans view NFL action through the prism of their fantasy team. That's the way that obviously somebody who may have only 30 yards in a game might be, it was a terrible week for that guy, except for the fact that somebody else got 100-some-odd million yards because the 30-yard guy got double covered. Or that was the week of the so-called bad matchup, when you're taking on Jalen Ramsey, right? Or the times when Joe Hayden would cover A.J. Green. Remember those matchups with the Bengals and the Browns, and Hayden would do particularly well those weeks,
yeah.
right? And you view, that's a bad week for that person. Well, that's why Juju Smith-Schuster had all those yards a couple years ago. Anyway, the reason why I bring this up is sometimes not everybody's success or value or worth or talent level can be measured in the tangible yards and things like that. So you put it all together, and Amari Cooper clearly had some issues getting points on the board, getting yards, the exception of a couple games I think he had against the Kansas City Chiefs. And so we were killing that pick. But you remember, Chris, when Jerry Jones said that the Cowboys had the opportunity to be a Los Angeles Rams type offense, and we were all joking about it.
Oh, yeah.
Whose offense would you take right now, just the roster?
Rams or Cowboys?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd take the Cowboys.
Now you throw McVay into it. Who do you take? That McVay is the one who's coming up with this stuff, who's sitting in the room with his offensive group.
McVay or McCarthy? Is that my choice?
Well, now you got to throw this into the mix.
Well, I'm going to take Sean McVay.
Yes. Right. But just in terms of the roster, Cooper, Gallup.
Well, didn't Dak
CeeDee
lead
Lamb,
the league in passing yards last year?
Dak? No, Jameis. He was second, Dak. Zeke and Pollard. Because, obviously right now we're wondering who's going to be the main bell cow for the Rams, although they can have a bunch of dynamic young kids that haven't had the rock yet.
A committee with the young guys.
Or one will come to the fore. Robert Woods is terrific. I love Cooper Kupp. My God, do I love that guy. But Cooks is now elsewhere again. Higbee and Everett are two terrific tight ends. And Goff and Dak. Say what you will about Jerry, but he has built a heck of an offensive team.
Yeah,
but,
he sure has.
That's what Daniel Jeremiah says. They're going to have to win games 40-30.
Yeah, that's going to be a shootout down there.
Oh, gosh, it's going to be fun. Gosh, knock on wood if you're with me. We need football on time. Did you see that the NFL, according to our friend Florio, is considering not only moving back, that Florio is considering, that the NFL is considering moving back
Well, there's contingency plans in place, yeah. If it
the
doesn't start
Super
on
Bowl,
time.
if necessary, all the way to the last weekend of February, blowing off the Pro Bowl. The draft, it was announced today, is going to be held in Cleveland next year. We knew it was going to be in Cleveland, but they announced the dates.
Looks like it's a week later.
It is.
Yeah, April 29th.
It
May
is.
1st, yeah. Yeah, the contingency plan, they announced, an October start with a February 28th Super Bowl.
I'd still sign for that right now.
Yeah, I would take that too.
844-204-RICH is the number to dial. Our 454s in that wormhole right now. We say hello to them, in particular to youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show. Kliff Kingsbury, John Salley, Brett Favre, and Lil Dicky will be joining us at the top of the next hour for the final 2 hours of this show. Chase in Michigan, you're here on the Rich Eisen Show. What's going on, Chase?
Not much, Rich. How are you and the gentleman doing today?
I'm fine.
Good.
How are you doing?
Not bad at all. Healthy, working from home, so I can't complain. But
what's on your mind?
I'm a longtime Packers fan. I'm actually a shareholder. Been a fan since I was a little kid, and I was pretty shocked. I knew we were tracking Love. I'd read about it before, and there were some receivers we wanted to get. And to be honest, I think the Niners jumped up and grabbed the guy we were looking for. But that being said, looking at the receiver core now, I think we have some up and comers personally, and in the way of St. Brown or MVS even with some development in Camaro. and then, of course, Lazard. So is it too much to ask that they would just be developed to a point where they would step up and fill those gaps? But also, like you were just talking about with the gentleman earlier, I believe after years of watching, I've seen, Rodgers kind of focus on guys like Nelson and Adams, and it's not too much to say that sometimes he does leave throws on the field, with other guys open, and he just looks one way and not the other. Or I don't know how it all works. I'm not a pro, but you see some guys open, and he just focuses on one instead.
Hey, I get it. We hear it all the time. Hey, Rodgers didn't see that guy. He leaves. He doesn't check it down. He tries too hard, or he checks it down. Or I totally understand what that's from. But and thank you for the call, bud.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Call back. Tons of film could be broken down in a way that you don't see this or that quarterback doesn't see that. And this may not end well for my take, if you will, if Jordan Love performs in 2022 and 2023 like Aaron Rodgers did in his first 2 years after Favre left.
Yeah.
But right now, to use that first-round selection, not on Patrick Queen, not on a wide receiver,
no,
but on the future quarterback position, I just don't know, man. I don't know. To trade up to do it, right now, that is not what I would be doing. I would be, let's win with Aaron right now. And then use a second or third or fourth or fifth on somebody else.
The thing is,
I don't know.
I could see them making this move if they missed the playoffs last year. Went 9-7, offense was so-so, and then you're like, all right, let's trade up, take a quarterback. We'll see how 20 and 21 go, and then we got our guy for 22 and beyond. But they were a game away from the Super Bowl.
Yeah. They were. And they were an inch shy of being the 1 seed in game 256. And I still would try and win now. I'd still try and win now. I'd look at it and win right now. I'd look at it and try and win right now and get that guy. And then don't even get another wide receiver. That one is just the total head scratcher of it all.
Yeah, that dominated the poll yesterday.
The top two answers of our poll was what was the most surprising aspect of the draft was the winner was the Packers didn't get a wide receiver, and second place was that they drafted Jordan Love. Again, Love is something that we will check out years from now. That's it. And if week 6, week 7, week 8, we're talking about, again, knock on wood that we have it, that week 7, week 6, week 7, week 8, we're sitting here talking about the Packers need to go into their period of that they've got to go into the trade deadline looking for a receiver. We'll be talking about this. I just don't. It's just something that is just so surprising to me that happened. Des Bryant's still out there too, by the way.
Still posting workout videos where he looks pretty good. Why can't he be a third option for a team
I don't know.
Year? There is no reason why.
That's one of the greatest mysteries to me.
It's really interesting. If he didn't get hurt that first Saints practice, it's really interesting where he'd be right now.
Oh yeah, I'm. It's one of the mysteries. Is why is he not hooked up with another team? Does he just want to play for Dallas only? I don't think that's going to happen.
Not now.
No.
Not with CeeDee Lamb there. Why can't he go to Green Bay?
That'd be amazing. Let's go to Terrell in Hartford, Connecticut. What's up, bud?
Hey, Rich, long-time listener, first-time caller. How
Thanks
you doing?
for picking up the phone. We appreciate it.
Have you been watching The Last Dance?
Oh, my gosh, yes. We got John Salley on. Yesterday we had the director on. It's been phenomenal. It's been just absolutely tremendous.
It's been everything I've been waiting for over a year for. I had a couple pointers I wanted to make. I think the reason this year everyone wants this NBA season to return is because of how the season ended last year, Kawhi kind of usurped the throne from LeBron because he wasn't really in the playoffs and KD got hurt. So everyone's wondering who the best player in the world really is right now. I think that's why everybody wants, the season to return, other than the fact that we love great basketball.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
What's your opinion on what if Kawhi were to win the championship this year? What does that do to LeBron's legacy, seeing that Kawhi would have the same amount of titles, and his win percentage in the finals is, and even in the playoffs is better than LeBron?
Look, I mean, we could, and thank you for the call, bud. I mean, the LeBron legacy question is always on the front burner whenever there's LeBron in the mix. But as I predicted, when The Last Dance got moved up, Jordan's greatness would be exposed to a whole generation of people that are oblivious to it, other than the fact that they think he's a shoe guy. And the guy that owns the Charlotte Hornets and they can't get in the playoffs. The
LeBron stands have been really interesting on Twitter throughout all of this. They're just really pushing even harder for their guy now. In response to the caller's question, Kawhi winning has no effect on LeBron. It just elevates Kawhi into suddenly now you got to think of him as a top 12 player maybe of all time to do it 3 different times in 3 different spots. It elevates Kawhi. It doesn't denigrate LeBron.
Well, I mean, more than anything, I would love the season to come back where
this season was on
pace to be so
just
to see how LA versus LA would play out would be truly amazing. One of the Last Dance Bad Boys montages. Did you see Doc Rivers get thrown down on the
I did
on the floor in his Atlanta Hawks uniform? John Salley's going to be joining us at the end of next hour. That starts with Kliff Kingsbury of the Arizona Cardinals and you. Brett Favre and Lil Dicky in hour 3. That's how we're rolling here on this Rich Eisen show. We're back with the NBCSN audience in a second.
This is the Rich Eisen Show.
I love this show.
It's a great show.
They're just so much fun.
Live from the Rich Eisen Show studio in Los Angeles.
I would rather go to battle with you two guys
Thank you.
than two other guys.
Okay.
The Rich Eisen Show. Today's guests: Arizona Cardinals head coach Kliff Kingsbury, four-time NBA champion John Salley, Pro Football Hall of Famer Brett Favre, plus from the FXX comedy Dave, rapper Lil Dicky. And now, it's Rich Eisen.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Rich Eisen Show. If you're just joining us right now on NBCSN, we welcome you in our first hour on youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show, and also our radio simulcast on Sirius XM Channel 211. We talk with Greg Cosell, the draft evaluator extraordinaire of NFL Films, and he pointed out that the acquisition of Jordan Love by the Packers in the first round, trading up the 4 spots to go get Jordan Love, makes sense when you see Matt LaFleur, the Packers head coach, what he likes to do in a timing offense and how he likes the offense to be run, similar to Kyle Shanahan, that Jordan Love fits. As he wanted to point out, he understands Aaron Rodgers, first ballot Hall of Famer. Seems like he could be a system fit and pretty much wherever he is. But that LaFleur, a coach, sitting there 18 hours a night, 18 hours a day, reviewing film after a year of having Aaron Rodgers there, need to look over the steering wheel and see how things will be for him, and hopefully the end of his first decade there, going into another one as head coach of the Green Bay Packers. And in terms of what this might all be meaning to play into Aaron Rodgers' mind, or what's going on his radar screen, it took literally all of about 60 seconds on draft night for everybody to point out that Aaron Rodgers might be getting Brett Favre. The Packers might be farving Rodgers, or Rodgers-ering Rodgers, right? Because that's what obviously happened to Brett. He was in his mid-30s when they drafted his replacement, and it was a big to-do. Although, unlike now, those Packers did not trade up to go get Aaron Rodgers. He just fell into their lap. The old Branch Rickey, luck being the residue of design. We're going to talk to Brett Favre about this at the top of our third hour, when he's scheduled to appear. I will say scheduled to appear, because right now, Chris Brockman, good to see you over there.
Hey, buddy.
He is on a golf course right now.
Okay.
And again, it's better for Brett to be on a golf course than a duck blind.
Yeah.
So we will have our ducks in a row at the top of the third hour when I believe he made the turn.
I was going to say, do you want to text him and find out?
I believe he made the turn right before we went on the air at noon Eastern time.
How the round's going? Do we know what Brett's handicap is?
We can ask him all this stuff when he joins us.
Yeah, I'm interested.
When he joins us.
I'm interested in that.
So, yeah, I mean, that's what we got going on with Favre. It's always interesting in the world of Brett Favre. My guy, Mike Del Tufo, good to see you over there, Michael.
Good to see
Del
you, Rich.
Tufo.
How you doing?
I am well. Our first hour will be Kliff Kingsbury of the Arizona Cardinals, the head coach. And very rare will I start an interview with a head coach. Certainly one who had an excellent first year, which he did. It was a rocky start. Took a while for them to get their first win. They got a tie before they got a win. But Kyler Murray wound up being the offensive rookie of the year, and halfway through the season, that sure looked like Josh Jacobs of the Oakland Raiders.
Right.
And this coach adds DeAndre Hopkins, has DeAndre Hopkins added to Larry Fitzgerald, who says, I will come back and play one more season with Kyler Murray at the very least, and put it all together, and you got a guy in Kenyon Drake who signed his tenure. I'm coming back to play there.
Love the Drake.
Very rare, however, you're going to ask that head coach when he joins with DeAndre Hopkins in the fold. And Isaiah Simmons now added in the draft. Many people could say he and Chase Young were the most physically gifted and talented. Freakish ability is the word used for Isaiah Simmons in the entire draft to go in the direction of real estate. You know, that's an odd way to start a conversation with a head coach in the NFL. But when he drafts like he's in a Bulgari ad, I mean, that's the first order of business, don't you think, when he joins us in about 15 minutes from now?
Who was it yesterday? Was it Daniel Jeremiah who said he looked like a cologne commercial?
It's a cologne. Yeah. Right? He didn't know how to pronounce noir. Drakkar Noir, which, by the way, was my cologne of choice for the prom.
I have some at my house still.
You
Rich,
still
right
do?
now. Yes.
They still make Drakkar Noir?
Yes, in a spray.
It was really a toss-up for me back in
Calvin Klein?
In the 80s. No. Paco Rabanne.
Paco Rabanne was a big one, too.
Paco Rabanne,
Paco
everybody.
Rabanne was a big one, too.
Paco Rabanne was potentially a first-round reach.
Yeah.
But back in the day, a surefire first-round draft choice for Cologne was Drakkar Noir.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
My dad wore Canoe.
New Jersey nightclubs smelled and reeked of Drakkar.
But that's probably from the soap on a rope days as well. I mean, we're really dating ourselves in terms of pungency.
Yes.
Wow.
So,
are we can we ask him about the house?
We got to ask him about the house.
Of course.
But like first, I mean. I think that's the most important thing that's come out of this.
Look, you don't want to show
draft.
your hand. You don't want to show your hand as an interviewer, but absolutely we're going to do that.
Just
come on.
Just making sure.
Look at the whole setup.
I'm not going to lie. On Saturday during the draft, all I was doing was on Zillow.com, like looking for real estate in his neighborhood.
It's so beautiful and perfect that it's everything from the remote, the mouse, and the cell phones look like coasters. That's how beautiful it is. That's how perfectly appointed it is. Like you could rest your drink on your phone because it looks like it belongs. And then, of course, there's the fire outside.
I mean a little barbecue area in the back.
Do you think?
Covered?
Do you think they're like, hey, coach, we're going to take a picture.
Honestly,
you can take a picture and...
Can we light the fire?
You got to. It's just amazing.
95 degrees out on Saturday. But
exactly.
Did you see the Lego version of it?
Yes. Incredible.
I mean...
God bless somebody with all this free time.
Everyone's got a lot of free time.
Yeah.
Let's put it together and make it, my kids love Lego Masters with Will Arnett. There it is. There it is.
I mean...
Fantastic.
It's just...
it's
perfect.
The Lego having the 5 o'clock shadow, which I don't think... feet up. And then, of course, the fire is...
the palm trees in the back.
Round of applause.
Fantastic.
Round of applause.
Just well done. He's the big winner from this weekend.
Now, they got to make a Lego of Belichick's Nantucket kitchen.
I want the...
By the way, I would have takeout from Belichick's Nantucket kitchen.
What would you get? Yeah, what's the go-to specialty?
New England clam chowder?
The onion rings, but there's only 8 of them. 8 rings.
Lobster roll, obviously.
Okay. 8 rings, but there's only 8. The 8 onion rings. The 8 rings.
The draft was awesome.
Well, I mean, it still is.
It was great.
There it is.
Oh, look at this.
There it is. I mean, that's a Lego. You can make a Lego table out of that for sure.
He came back and fed the dog.
Nike the dog.
I mean,
come on.
Nike the dog.
Just do it.
Great name.
That chandelier is a little out of place.
It's Nantucket. This is Nantucket,
I know,
man.
I'm just saying.
You could see the white picket fence out there. That's Nantucket,
The wicker
man.
chair.
It's Nantucket. Beautiful Nantucket.
It is beautiful.
Old school windows.
Let me just hit this real quick. I wasn't a fan of the Jordan Love pick, and that might not be years from now. It may not live very well. It might not age well, right? It may not age well. And I hope for Jordan Love's sake, it ages poorly. And I hope for the sake of the Green Bay Packers, it ages poorly. I hope Packers fans are so fortunate to go from Favre to Rodgers to Love, and Love is as good as the previous 2. By the way, do you know how rare that is? How rare would that be? Seriously, the Dolphins are still looking for the next Marino. Elway's looking for the next him. and he's coming on our first guest in the NBCSN hour next tomorrow, right? The Cowboys are looking for we're looking for the next Aikman for a long time. They got Romo, and now they're hoping Dak is as sustained as the previous. We can go on and on and on and on about,
I wanted to ask you this
about going from one to the other. I mean, that is not easy to do. But let me just finish this point, and then you can bring up yours, and then we'll get to Kliff Kingsbury. Is that I hope I am wrong that they chose Rodgers' successor too early when they needed to give Rodgers the firepower to win now, which they may have done, by the way, by choosing the running back and the tight end in A.J. Dillon and Josiah DeGuara as their two-punch to Aaron Jones's one. And DeGuara, apparently, in this trying to mimic the style of the 49ers offense and Kyle Shanahan, he would be the Kyle Juszczyk in this equation. And by the way, that's useful. It's not as if there weren't any weapons added for Rodgers. It's just not out wide. I hope I am wrong on this front. But anybody out there, and there are some, and I see it on my Twitter, anybody out there that is saying that Rodgers is now expendable on the trading block, that the Jordan Love pick means the Packers are ready to move on, or an indication that here comes Belichick swooping in, that's bat guano insane. That's not happening. Forget about the cap ramifications. Aaron Rodgers is ready to win now. It's just they didn't help him with a wide receiver in the draft, the deepest wide receiver draft, to win now. But I am seeing, after the draft, veterans that could be gotten in a trade because they're now more expensive than the counterpart or successor a team just drafted. Jordan Love is not ready now. He even basically said when he was on the show on Thursday, hey, the most often asked question I've received is what happened last year for a drop-off in my numbers. Kid from Bakersfield who got only an offer at Utah State and has made the most of it. Similar, Aaron Rodgers, kid from Chico, California, whose only offer was to go to Butte College, and then Jeff Tedford found it because he was looking at a tight end prospect, brought him to Cal, and then the rest is history. I hope the rest is history for him. But that history isn't going to happen until a couple of years from now. That's for sure. And in terms of Rodgers not getting the first-round help, I saw this tweet today. Don Bowie, my producer, would you mind popping that up? The tweet about Aaron Rodgers and how many first-round touchdown. I guess how many first-round wide receivers have caught a touchdown pass from Aaron Rodgers. This was placed up on Twitter today, and this made a lot of rounds, and I'm not completely sure if it's 100% accuracy, but it has been retweeted by enough people that this does appear to be accurate. First-round selections to have caught a touchdown pass from these great quarterbacks.
Is the Rodgers number missing?
No, it's only Mercedes Lewis, and that was last year. He's never – look at his wide receivers. They've been terrific, but not from Randall Cobb to Jordy Nelson to Donald Driver, so on, so forth, up and down the line. Even Brady, who's made a lot of chicken salad, right?
Probably 40 of those are to Randy Moss.
Randy Moss was a lot of that. Look at Peyton Manning. Look how lucky he's been. Well, I mean, Marvin Harrison. But Favre even had the help. Phillip Rivers at only 35. Marino, Big Ben, because obviously Antonio Brown was not a first-rounder. But the reason why I bring all of this up is that, again, is what Aaron Rodgers is working from. Hasn't had a first-round selection by the Packers on offense since the year after he won the Super Bowl. He had to wait all this time, and it's now his successor. So that's why I thought of Favre. Let's get Favre on here. We could talk a little bit to Brett about his thoughts on this. Hopefully he'll be off the golf course in time. Dave Bird, our friend Lil Dicky of FXX's Dave, will be on this program. He was on it a few years ago. We did a cameo on it, Brockman, you and I. And it's a fictionalized version of his life. A guy who just turned his life into a rapping career. I do believe one of his first videos is where he used to just knock on people's doors and ask to use their lush homes and boats and stuff like that.
Yeah, so he went around Beverly Hills just trying to shoot a video for no money. So he was asking people if he could use their house, their pool, their cars.
And the streaming, it's breaking all sorts of records in this.
Yeah, it's awesome.
In this time of quarantine, 5 million per episode. As it airs at 10 p.m. Eastern on FXX on Wednesdays, and then the next day on Hulu, and the season 1 finale is tomorrow night. And John Salley will join us at the end of this hour. So much talk about the bad boys, Pistons not shaking Jordan's hand when Jordan finally vanquished John Salley and the rest of his teammates of the Detroit Pistons. The two-time defending champions of the NBA finally got bounced by the Bulls. That was a huge part of this weekend's double dip of The Last Dance on ESPN. And John Salley will join us, and we hope we shake hands by the end of the conversation. But when we come back, the proprietor of what Sam Farmer of the LA Times calls the Ritz Kingsbury, Arizona Cardinals head coach Kliff Kingsbury, on The Rich Eisen Show. Okay, welcome back to our show. We say hello again to our youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show viewers. We also say hello to our Sirius XM Channel 211 listeners. Do you have a poll question? You just never really
I was going to
figure one out today.
Well,
we don't have to
we have
one.
a lot of guests. I figure with Kliff, maybe we could talk about who had the best home setup for the NFL draft. I have Kingsbury, Vrabel, with the circus that he had going on.
Right.
Belichick, obviously. The fourth one, I was kind of throwing it out there. I had Roger Goodell, if you want to vote on him, or if there's anyone else who kind of stood out in the virtual home drafts. I know you.
Jerry.
Oh
yeah, Jerry on the yacht.
He wins.
Good point. Jerry does not win. Kingsbury.
You're mobile.
Wins.
You're on a yacht.
Kingsbury.
No, Kingsbury just looked good.
Vrabel's circus is awesome. Belichick, the simplicity of it. We may not get to it this hour.
Memorable. You could say memorable.
All right.
Not best, because, that's when the yacht or Kingsbury will
yacht
win.
wins.
All right.
Most memorable, Belichick, Goodell, Kingsbury, Jerry Jones. Rip the knob
you
off.
want the Vrabel circus?
Oh.
Vrabel
Instead
circus.
of Goodell's? Yes.
Yeah.
Sure, sounds good.
All right. I wanted
Vrabel circus.
my question that I wanted to ask
It was a circus.
you.
It was like The Greatest Showman.
It was crazy. Do you think, what are the chances, what percentage do you put at Aaron Rodgers finishing his career in Green Bay?
Ooh, nice question.
Well, we're just not going to have time to get to it this hour, so we'll hit it now.
We could do that one tomorrow.
Okay. I thought of it yesterday. I just didn't have time.
We could Brett Favre that question, yeah.
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 We could delay it until tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Because I would have told you
that was him watching the pick. That was him watching Jordan Love get picked.
Prior to 3 weeks ago, I would have told you Tom Brady retiring as a Patriot would be 100%.
Right.
And if you just look at all the greats who have not finished their career with the team that they're most associated with, it's
Don's
basically
pushing
everyone.
for that to be our poll question. But
let's just do it tomorrow. We'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah, it's still I could still ask Brett Favre that question today. Because what are the odds? Like, do you think he's going to finish his career with the Packers? Yes or no? I think the answer would be no right now. They just drafted his successor. The guy's 36.
They drafted Brady's successor, and that guy got traded.
I know that. And Brady still didn't finish with the team, did he?
Right. So
why wouldn't if Aaron Rodgers wants to, and he's as physically gifted as he possibly is, why wouldn't he want to play till he's 45 also? Why couldn't he?
Same thing with Breeze.
When Favre played as a 40-year-old, we're like, he's going to set every record that will never be broken for 40-year-olds. And now Breeze is going to do it, and Brady's going to do it. The lifespan of an NFL quarterback is being extended. All right, we're back in a second. Okay, welcome back to the Rich Eisen Show. We've got Kliff Kingsbury and John Salley and Lil Dicky. We were hoping for Brett Favre. He literally just texted me that he can't make it today. So we will try.
Really?
We will try for another time. He could have just seen what we talked about in the commercial break. So yeah, we've got Kingsbury, John Salley, and Lil Dicky. But we'll get Brett Favre.
You ask him how he shot.
Well, we were just talking about. Go ahead and ask me what we just.
Yeah, so I thought of this yesterday, and it's obviously relevant today. What are the chances that Aaron Rodgers finishes his career in Green Bay?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you want to handicap that, put a percentage on it? Because if you would have asked me this question about Tom Brady 3 weeks ago, I would have said 100% that Brady finishes his career in New England. Of course, now he won't. And if you look at all the great quarterbacks throughout the years, the percentage who retire with the team that they're most associated with is very low. Dan Marino comes to mind as someone who retired with the team that was a Hall of Famer with. Troy Aikman as well. But a lot of these guys don't. And I'm just wondering if Rodgers is going to suffer the same fate as now Tom Brady.
Well, I mean, it's really fascinating, Chris, because you're taking a look at something now that if Garoppolo was a first rounder,
okay,
how would we have viewed the end game for Brady? He was a second rounder,
but he was still
high up
drafted
enough
to be the
high up enough
successor.
So, yes,
and the plan was in place. Nobody saw 3 Super Bowls in 5 years coming.
That's what I'm saying. So it's very difficult right now to sit here and say, what are the odds that Aaron Rodgers doesn't finish his career in Green Bay?
But I'm just saying, do you think it's likely that he doesn't?
Correct. I do. Guy's 36, and the lifespan of quarterbacks are being expanded considerably now. Again, when Favre played for the Vikings as a 40-year-old man, we're like he's going to break every record for a 40-year-old quarterback that will never be touched, and Brady could do that as a 45-year-old sitting in Tampa 2 years from now. And I know that Breeze, we're expecting him to be on our colleagues with NBC after this year. But how's Breeze going to look as a 41-year-old? Pretty damn good, I would suggest. I would imagine. 844-204-RICH is the number to dial. We will take your calls here on this edition of the Rich Eisen Show. But we turn and find the man on the phone line right now, the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, Kliff Kingsbury. And it's very rare that I begin an interview with somebody asking, who's your real estate agent? But, Coach, who's your real estate agent?
Lisa Roberts. She does a great job. Anybody in Scottsdale needs a spot.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh.
Free plug.
Oh, this is, yeah, man. I mean, this is this is the spot. This is, you got a guest room?
Apparently. Yeah, there's a couple. You're always welcome, man.
I appreciate that. Yeah, before we get down to the football aspect of things, are you surprised by the reaction to your draft setup, Coach?
I think people are a bit bored these days at home. They're excited about some live sports on TV,
yes,
if you will, and
yep.
It kind of took off a little bit.
It did a little bit. It certainly did, and it's very finely appointed, very finely tuned. I'm very impressed by it. The question I have for you is the fire in the background.
That was extra. Yeah, that was a bit extra.
Now, does it light up when you draft Isaiah Simmons, or I mean, like,
yeah.
Is that what it's?
Yeah, the whole house lit up. I think, when we got that pick, we were fired up.
I bet, like you're like fire up the coals, fire up. You know that probably had to happen. Walk me through that moment, Coach, because you could have had your choice of lineman not named Thomas. So what was walking through you and Steve Keim's brain trust at that moment in time?
We had known it was a deep draft for tackles, obviously. Some really talented guys that we had rated high, but Simmons was a guy we had targeted early as just a unique talent in this day and age with the tight ends we deal with in our division. The Kittles of the world running down the seam every other play. We felt like it was a guy we couldn't pass up. Doing the character checks with his coaches there at Clemson, just the competitive nature, the work ethic, all of those things were through the roof, and just thrilled to have him be a Cardinal.
I bet. And where do you think you play him? I mean, that was such a question about him at the Combine, Coach, was who is he? What is he? I mean, do you play him in the third level? You play him in the second level? You play him in every level? I mean, what do you think you've got in store for Isaiah Simmons?
Yeah, Rich, that's a good problem to have, if you will. I think talking to Vance Joseph, our DC, we're going to have different packages. Make sure we give him stuff he's comfortable with. Having an abbreviated off season, maybe not even getting to see those guys until camp. We want to make sure wherever we put him, he can play fast, use his athleticism, and be in that attack mode that he played with at Clemson. And so we'll work through that. But he'll definitely be involved in multiple packages.
Speaking of attack mode, I had Dabo Swinney, his college coach, on during NFL Draft-a-thon Live while I was doing that on social and digital platforms. It seems like he can be aggressive, asking to play offense too. Coach, are you aware of that?
Yeah. I know he's a heck of a wide receiver in high school, and I already told DJ. I had a feeling if he felt us, we'd get him. I told him, hey, if y'all don't think you can find a place to put him on defense, he's going to be a tight end day one. And so they figured out a plan pretty quick.
Well, do you have any plans on that, or no shot for you?
No shot. No shot.
Is that because you got enough weapons, or you just don't want to hear from Patrick Peterson? What is that?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And everybody starts asking. He'll be wanting to run posts and reverses and double passes and everything else.
I bet. Kliff Kingsbury, Arizona Cardinals head coach here on the Rich Eisen show. Where were you the first minute you heard it could be possible DeAndre Hopkins would be on your team?
Yeah, Steve Keim had just sent me a text. He's like, you got to get down here ASAP. So I went down there, and he started talking me through the possibility of what it looked like. And, going into this draft, we were thinking that may be a position we wanted to address. We knew it was going to be a wide receiver deep, and that came up to be able to get D-Hop here. It's just too good an opportunity to pass up. And we've been fired up about it. I think anytime you have a young quarterback you're trying to develop, trying to build with, to have one of the top receivers in the league join you and still in the prime where he's at, it's just an unbelievable situation for us.
I bet. What have your conversations with Hopkins been like?
Really just talking through, hey, this is how we operate here. Offensively, this is how we're going to use you. Wish we could get you on the field sooner, but obviously it's an adjusted off season. But just kind of talking through, hey, what we see his role in this offense, and we want to help maximize him as a player. The production was through the roof at Houston, and we want to keep that going out here.
So, not that you want to give me the answers to the test, to use a phrase that Howie Roseman accused me of asking when I asked him about a package for Jalen Hurts yesterday, but what do you plan to do with DeAndre Hopkins?
Just get him on the field as much as possible, really. I think you thought Bill did a great job in Houston, moving him around, doing different things, and just finding ways to get him the ball. He's so good after the catch. He's a physical runner after the catch, and always seems to fall forward. So we'll have him all over the place and try to get him the ball as much as possible.
And I assume him and Larry on the same side, right? I mean, like just to talk a little X's and O's. I mean, just give everyone a big old set of fits by putting them on the same side. Would that be an option for you?
That will definitely be an option. I mean, you have two guys that are all time when you're talking about catches in yards and things of that nature. I mean, the pace that Hops on is right there in line with what Fitz has done. So to have two guys like that type of size, that type of physicality out on the field at the same time is going to be fun to work with.
Kliff Kingsbury, Arizona Cardinals head coach here on the Rich Eisen show. Let's talk about the rest of your draft. What do you like about the kids that you got? Because obviously we're stuck on Isaiah Simmons and talking about that. And then, of course, there's that fire in your backyard that I definitely want to return to later on in this conversation. But what about the rest of your draft?
Yeah, Josh Jones, we got in the third round. We had him as a first-round type talent, a tackle. So we were able to get our tackle still a little bit later than we anticipated. And, phenomenal pass blocker, had a great year there at U of H, got better each year. Really excited about him. Took some defensive linemen that really I think will help kind of ensure that front for us where we had some depth issues, had some injuries last year, one from Utah too. Another one from LSU, Lawrence, and a linebacker there from Cal who led the country in tackles, tough, old school type player. So really excited about the draft. Not a ton of picks, but I felt like we got a bunch of value for the guys, and just ready to get to work with them.
What does Kyler Murray need to improve upon? What do you think?
I really thought he made huge strides towards the end of the year. The beginning was a little rough. A lot of it had to do with my decision to not really run our offense in the preseason, which was a bad decision. So it took us about a month, I think, to figure out collectively who we are, what we do well, and execute at a higher level. But the back half of the season, I really thought he did a nice job of eliminating the negative plays, and that's something that's going to continue. I think when we're not moving backwards and he's not taking sacks and knowing when the party's over, we're going to be a lot more efficient, obviously. But struggled in the red zone some. We all have to understand the Titans up down there, and then I think third down we can improve quite a bit as well.
So let me walk through what you just said. So not running your offense in the preseason is something you regret? Is that what you just mentioned there?
Yeah, I do. I think we ran plays, but we didn't work. Our operation didn't work. Our tempo didn't work. How it was going to be in the game, thinking, week one against Detroit, we'll spring it on them and just be rolling. And it just didn't happen that way. I think it would have definitely helped us out to just rep it the way we wanted to operate throughout the season, in those first 4 games, and would have had a better feel overall as a team of what we wanted it to look like. And so it took us about a month to get that feel, and then I felt like we really progressed as the season went on.
Well, I mean, he just took off, man, in the last 8 games for sure. Last 10 games, you could even maybe pinpoint. Is there a moment where you're like, okay, that's where we're going to start. We're pivoting now. Is there a moment?
There were a couple of times where the play wasn't there, and he was running around trying to make a play, and he threw it away. First, second down, we stayed on schedule. There were a couple of third downs. We progressed all the way through, hung in the pocket, guys in the face, made big throws, but nothing, over the top that just pointed to one play. I just think overall the game started to slow down for us, understanding the preparation it took week in, week out to play at a high level like this. And, the progress just continued throughout the season.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons why I ask is not only because you're head coach of the guy right now, and you spend so much time with him, and you're standing there, and your team and his fortunes are so tied together, but I mean, one of the most remarkable pieces of video from a couple of college seasons ago was you saying that if you had the first overall pick in a draft, you'd use it on Kyler Murray when you were, you're the coach at Texas Tech, getting set to take on him in Oklahoma, and that you actually had a chance to do that. That freaks me out every time I see that. What about you?
Yeah, it is. It's one of those glitches in the matrix right there. I mean, he was a guy that I had targeted from a young age that I'd never seen anything like him. Run around. He was like 5'2" as a sophomore in high school. I'd never seen any quarterback be able to move like that and throw like that, and the mechanics and the way he played in balance and the yards and the touchdowns. I mean, it was just phenomenal. And so to kind of go through it and watch him over the years and then end up being able to coach him at this level, it's been pretty special.
Kliff Kingsbury, Arizona Cardinals head coach here on the Rich Eisen Show. What's going on with the Cardinals carry-out initiative? I've heard about this. It seems to be pretty neat about what's going on in your neck of the woods in this COVID-19 universe that we're all trying to get through, Coach.
It is. Our owner, Michael Bidwell, has been first class in his response to trying to help the community any way he can. And this is a deal with our local restaurants we're trying to support by getting them out there and purchasing meals from them, getting their names out there. And then also our team is buying a bunch of meals from these local restaurants to hand out to the first responders, the healthcare workers, the nurses, the police officers. So it's really been a great initiative that Michael started up, and it's really taken off.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Bidwell has been always such a supporter of everything that I've done from the NFL Network. He helped with my book when it came out in 2007, and now obviously something like this. Again, Cardinals Carryout is what it is called, and if there's anybody obviously in the area, in the great state of Arizona, and the area around Phoenix, it's something that everyone should look into. Plus, also, I mean, why the hell would you ever want to leave your house?
I'm with you. I am with you.
I mean, I can't get enough. So just if you don't mind me walking through this photograph with you, just briefly.
Man.
No, please, just bear with me here. Bear with me. So those are cell phones. Those are not coasters, right? Those were 3 cell phones that you had there for your draft setup?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a bunch of technology just in case there was some hacking or some difficulties.
Okay.
So
right.
That's not like a normal daily deal. I don't rock around with 4 cell phones in my pocket.
No. I understand that. No, because look, man, we saw so many people's draft setups, okay? And there were landlines everywhere. Everywhere. People were hardwired because you just never know. But not you. That's kind of without a net right there. It's just all cell service, right?
Yeah, I mean, if they take out 4 cell phones, then I guess they win at that point,
Right. So, yeah, and I don't see any chargers there. I mean, you were without a net. I mean, I don't even see any of that right there. And there's one laptop in front of what looked like a computer screen, 2 of them, right? And that's it.
Yeah.
And this was it? Did you not move? That's it? This is where you were on the couch the whole time?
That's it. Yeah, that's it. I mean, you got to have your film to watch. You got to have your boards up.
Sure.
See where the picks are going, and you're set, ready to roll.
Right. Who took this photo? People want to know.
Yeah, we had you were allowed to have one IT guy there at your house. So it was one of our IT guys that took it.
And he stayed in the cabana, the IT guy?
He did not stay at the house.
Did he light the fire or did you light the fire? We're all fascinated. This is fascinating to everybody.
It is fascinating, isn't it? Yeah, I lit the fire.
Okay. Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead and ask.
And Kliff, did you get in the pool at any point?
I did not get in the pool. That's maybe next year. We may have some props. I thought Vrabel did a great job with the props, just kind of having that weird vibe at his house. So
it was a circus.
I mean, next year the money could be on the table.
I know. Vrabel is like one moment shy of a draft gimp. He's one moment shy of having.
There's no doubt. Somebody was about to walk in that screen that nobody wanted to see.
It's like a couple of draft moments shy of a Pulp Fiction draft.
That's exactly right. And he acted just oblivious to all of it. That was the best part. He's just sitting there going to work, and there's just this weirdness all around him. Awesome.
I know. And then Belichick had that Spartan Nantucket kitchen area with a dog, but nothing beats what's the one I guess comparison you've heard about the photographs before I guess we give one, what it looks like to people. What have you heard the most?
The funniest one I saw was it was a picture and then they had the Brazzers logo.
Oh gosh.
You know what I mean? That was actually really well done.
Fantastic.
I was gonna go Cologne.
Bond villain.
Bond.
Yeah. They all work.
I know. Jerry's had the yacht. Jerry had the yacht. I know.
The yacht. I was hoping he would really put it on the back deck, show the sunset, because the mega yacht would have been epic.
Yeah, I bet.
But he downplayed it a little bit.
All right, last question, and this is going to sound really weird, but are you wearing loafers with no socks right now? I want to know right now. Is that your default?
I'm barefoot. I'm just barefoot in the house.
Okay, man. All right. Well, look, you got a big season ahead of you, man. I'm knocking on wood that we get to see what this looks like right on time and everything going on. And on that front, I guess what does the your off-season program? What are you doing? How are you conducting all this for those who may not fully know what's going on in the world of the NFL for that? Yeah,
we started our Zoom meetings this week, and that's just offensive, defensive installs, special teams installs, going through stuff on Microsoft Teams on that Zoom app, and doing as much as we can install-wise for the next 3 weeks, and then everything will be reevaluated, and we'll kind of see where we're at. If there's a date we can get back in our facilities or not, and go from there.
I hope so. Hey, Coach, congrats on a knockout first year, man. I know you'd hoped for maybe a few more wins, but the sky is the limit, and a very talented team that Steve Keim has put together on behalf of the rest of the team with you, and I'm looking forward to seeing all 16 games, like I said, hopefully right at the very start. I'd love to see it.
Awesome. Thanks, Rich. Appreciate you having me.
And good running into you at the Combine, too. Appreciate that conversation, and then this one as well. You take care of yourself. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. That's Kliff Kingsbury. Kliff Kingsbury. I love that dude, man.
He's living his best life,
his world.
dude.
Oh, we forgot to ask him about the Lego. Oh, man. I mean, what are you going to say?
Next time.
The Lego version of it. They should send him the Lego version of it.
Oh, for sure.
The Lego version of it is just amazing.
Just don't let Gronk touch it, and we're good.
Yeah, keep that away from Gronk.
Keep it away from Gronk.
I know. He'll spike it. I think it's just amazing. So well done. So well done. Such a cool cat, Kliff Kingsbury.
I mean,
Sean McVay had a good setup, too. He had kind of the similar backyard there.
I haven't seen
but he had
that
the
for
view.
some reason.
McVay had the view.
What of the Pacific Ocean and stuff like that?
Oh, no, he had the view of downtown.
Okay. 844-204-RICH, number to dial. John Salley will be joining us here on this edition of the Rich Eisen Show. Don't go anywhere. We've got Lil Dicky as well in hour number 3. All right, welcome back to the show. Let's get John on at the top of the third hour. I texted him saying that, and I know that we called him. You want to pop John on just for a quick second? Hey, John. Oh, my God. Oh. You there, Mike? You got him? Or is that just as well? Uh-oh. All right, Adam, I'm talking to our call screener through all this. Tell John Salley we'll call him back in about 20 minutes' time. That way we get more than just 10 minutes with him.
Yeah, of course.
How does that sound? Okay. And then Lil Dicky will be joining us. I love that conversation with Kliff. Man, they've got it working. They got You want to have playmakers on every level, right? Chandler Jones, Isaiah Simmons, Patrick Peterson. You also have an improving offensive line that they hit really hard. DeAndre Hopkins, Larry Fitzgerald, Kyler Murray, Kenyon Drake. Those are playmakers. I just named 7 playmakers.
They are going to be
How many teams
fun.
How many
to
teams
watch.
have 7 playmakers, one on every level? You could just mention off the top of your head.
Chiefs.
Tyrann Mathieu, Chris Jones, right? Frank Clark. Middle of that defense you got there, right? Right. Then you got obviously that offensive line, Tyreek Hill. Kenyon Drake. I mean, I know Damian Williams had a terrific postseason.
Dallas.
Dude, where was he in the regular season last year?
I
saw his ability in the playoffs, and we went all in on Damian Williams and for man spread centerpiece.
We had a down year. We're going to bounce back.
Okay, dude.
We're going to bounce back.
I appreciate that sentiment.
Positivity. We're going to bounce back.
Oh, man. So Favre says it looks like the time that we had him for today is good for tomorrow.
Oh, great.
Think that will work, what he says. I love this man. I love this man. And
text him back. What did he shoot?
What did you shoot today? Okay. Hey, what did you shoot today?
I wonder if he broke 80.
We all want to know.
Yeah, we're dying to know here. How about Favre on the golf course?
I know.
I mean, I am just dying to go play golf.
Okay. Let's go. We'll take a break. We'll be back with your calls at 844-204-RICH. Then John Salley, then Lil Dicky will be on this program. Don't go anywhere. I know I keep mentioning the NFC South as the toughest division in football when you got the New Orleans Saints, who won all those games last year and didn't even get a bye week. And then you've got Tom Brady now in that division. The Atlanta Falcons started 1-7 and finished up strong, right? Correct? Beating the eventual NFC champion San Francisco 49ers, which put them on a footing of maybe finishing in a wild card spot. Remember that? How the Falcons went into San Francisco and beat them? Remember that one?
That's surprising.
I'm sure that ruined many people. Hey, you got 15 weeks in and your suicide pool, and
that was.
I'm sure that was a big one.
Yeah.
So, but how about the NFC West? You got your defending NFC champs there, and I've talked about how great of a job Lynch did moving around the chessboard. The Seattle Seahawks were terrific. They did Far better than people expected. What happens if that happens again next year? Russell Wilson is at the top of his game. Los Angeles Rams are always in the mix, man, with McVay and Les Snead and that roster. And now the Arizona Cardinals. How many teams can you say off the top of your head, playmaker on every level of defense, Chandler Jones, Isaiah Simmons, Patrick Peterson. The offensive line is improving. Your wide receiving group is DeAndre Hopkins, Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk. That kid Andy Isabella that they drafted last year with the pick I think they got for Josh Rosen. He's the one who dashed through the San Francisco defense on a Thursday night. Then you got Kyler Murray, your reigning offensive rookie of the year, handing off to Kenyon Drake and others. What do you think?
Off the top of my head, I would probably say...
You'd sign for that one, wouldn't you?
I'd say Kansas City's probably up there. Dallas is certainly up there.
But not on defense. You can't name playmakers on all three levels of that defense.
On Dallas's defense? No.
I mean, obviously, Tank Lawrence up front is top-notch.
Van Der Esch, when healthy, is a top linebacker.
That's a great...
But the secondary...
Jalen Smith, I guess?
They had Byron Jones, but obviously he's gone now.
Right.
Certainly on offense, Dallas has.
Hey, man. Not too bad.
I mean, let's just hope there's football, man.
I know that. John Salley will be calling at the top of hour number 3. Lil Dicky will also be on in hour number 3 here on the Rich Eisen Show. John Elway will be joining us in hour number 2 tomorrow. And Brett Favre has already texted me saying that this hour 3 of tomorrow's show should work fine.
Okay, great.
Love talking to Brett Favre.
Did he get back to you with his score or no?
Say it again?
Did he get back to you with his...
He has not gotten back to me with what he's playing. He's still in the middle of his round. So I'm going to just back off and just, let the man play.
Okay.
844-204-RICH number to dial, the Geico fan line. Let's go to it right now. John in the great state of Michigan, you're here on the Rich Eisen Show. What's up, John?
Hello, this is Jim. This is Jim. I think maybe you got it.
Jim, my bad, Jim.
It's okay, man. It's okay.
I wiped
go
down.
Blue, man. Go Blue. I'm a Michigan man.
Attaboy, Jim. Jim, I wipe down my desk every single minute I walk in here. The first 20 minutes of my show prep is with gloves and a face covering, and I kind of walk in looking like I'm Walter White, ready to cook, and sometimes it leaves a little bit of a smear on the desk. I can see it says Jim now. What's up, Jim?
Hey, I just wanted to comment about, you're talking about first-round receivers, and really, I mean, you could really make the argument for teams that don't have first-round offensive linemen, teams that don't have first-round running backs. If you don't have a run game, if you can't protect your quarterback, what's the point of having great receivers? I mean, I'm from Michigan. I'm from Detroit. We had probably the best receiver ever, but we really didn't have much of a run game when Calvin Johnson was here. So you understand the point I'm making?
Of course.
You could really make the argument. And then if you have a defense, what if you got defensive players that you can't stop anybody, but you got great receivers, but you can't stop anybody. You can't get your defense off the field. So I guess the point I'm making is that it's really about winning, and I guess you need to have it. You have to have talent at all levels. Is really the point I'm trying to make.
And I appreciate.
Just want to get your thoughts. I'm an old high school coach.
Hey, Jim, you're right. You're right. But, it is a team game. It is a team game. It's a quarterback-driven game. It's a team game. And you've got to take care of your most important players and make them and surround them with the best possible cast. And all I heard sitting at the Combine in Indianapolis in February and throughout the entire draft evaluation process and leading up to the draft and after the first round, even after they drafted Jordan Love, that there were at least 6 more rounds in which to draft a viable starter at the worst in the NFL, and they didn't even do that. And thank you for the call, Jim. I know you had Calvin Johnson, right? I know that. Remember that they went Charles Rogers, Mike Williams. I mean, when Mooch was there towards the, when they were building from the outside, Matt Millen was building from the outside in.
Interesting.
Just strategy. I know. But everyone was going with wide receivers then. In the same way that I guess we're going to start seeing these young running backs. And I hope that some of these young drafted running backs can get to a second contract. I think we're seeing. How about this? Are we seeing the end of bell cow running backs in the NFL?
You could say that.
Are we saying that we're seeing the end? Seeing the end of that? That we get one guy, and we're going to give that guy 25 to 30 carries, and that's what we're going to get.
I would say any given year, there's really only a handful of teams who do that anyway.
I mean, your bell cow backs in the NFL.
Tennessee did it this year.
Derrick Henry, correct.
Dallas has been
did,
doing
but, I mean,
it.
honestly, but did Zeke have a transformative year? I mean, make a difference?
He has led the league in rushing 3 times.
I understand that, but the number of times where that led to wins and championships, we're still waiting.
He had almost 1,400 yards this year.
That's crazy. I got to be honest with you. I can't remember the time where Zeke took over the game and the Cowboys won the game. It just struck me the number of times that he'd come out of the game and Pollard would come in. That's what we're seeing more and more of now. That's why I'm thinking this. Where you draft a kid one year and then you draft a kid another year and then you go to work with them. And then you try that again in 3-4 years from now. You know who the picks that I love the most, period, out of, certainly from Friday night on, I love DeAndre Swift going to Detroit, right? So now you got Kerryon Johnson and DeAndre Swift, correct, Chris? In Detroit.
Yes.
And if they're healthy, look out, right? You've got Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb in Cleveland. And then you've got, I'd love this pick. I mean, not many people talked about it because Jalen Hurts was the pick on Friday night that stole all the oxygen from the room. Jonathan Taylor going to the Indianapolis Colts. Yeah. Jonathan Taylor is a terrific running back. And let's forget about human being, which he's incredible too. This kid from Jersey. Because, of course, that's where Wisconsin gets all their running backs, straight from New Jersey.
Yeah.
Ron Dane, this kid. And him and Marlon Mack together?
That Colts offense is going to be fun.
And Phillip Rivers.
Winging it around.
Right. And they got T. Higgins too, right?
Yeah. To go with, obviously T.Y. Hilton, Jack Doyle.
Jonathan Taylor and Marlon Mack. T. Higgins went to the Bengals, my bad. They got another receiver, the top of the second round. The Indianapolis Colts. That was, I loved the Jonathan Taylor pick, big time. I thought that pairing with Marlon Mack.
Michael Pittman.
Yes.
Big receiver from USC.
And then Desmond Patman from Washington State in the 6th round. Again, that's the one guy. Donovan Peoples-Jones from my school. Cleveland got him in the 6th round. And Green Bay never even got any of these kids in the 6th round. 6th round, you could find a wide receiver from Washington State and Michigan. And Green Bay didn't budge in either direction. I mean, it's just nutty. What's our poll question out there at Rich Eisen Show?
Oh, I didn't even put it up yet. I'll do it right now.
Okay.
We're talking about the virtual home setups for the NFL draft. Who had the most memorable home setup? Kliff Kingsbury, we just talked to him.
Yes.
Mike Vrabel, he had the circus going on at his house. Bill Belichick and his dog in Nantucket.
Yes.
And the Jerry Jones Bond villain yacht.
The Bond villain yacht.
Yeah.
Okay. So Kingsbury's the Bond, James Bond.
Yes.
All right, let's go to the Geico fan line once again. Lonnie in Los Angeles. How you been, Lonnie?
Hey, man. How you doing? It's been a minute.
It has been. I have about a minute for you. What's going on in your mind?
Oh, man, I got a crazy story for you. I was in Chicago in Illusions, which was the club Dennis Rodman owned. So I was in the VIP with Dennis Rodman, Carmen Electric, Glenn Rice, Montel Jordan, a few girls. I challenged Glenn Rice to a game of horse. I'm talking trash to him. I'm mimicking Ali. Glenn gets mad. Glenn wants to play for $40,000 a letter. My brother leans over to me and tells me, "You better talk your way out of this. I can only spot you one letter." You got to get Glenn on the show. That was a crazy night.
I don't know.
And I ended up talking myself out of this. You got to get Glenn. And Dennis Rodman is the coolest guy, nicest dude you ever want to hang out with.
No, that's amazing. Hey, look, and I'm none of that's surprising. Thanks for the call, Lonnie.
Oh, wow.
I would never want to shoot with Glenn Rice. In terms of Michigan athletes who have made me the most happy ever, Glenn Rice may be number one. When he went on that run to win the national championship over Mike Del Tufo's Seton Hall Pirates.
Foul.
Not Brian Greasy?
No, they were a good team.
I mean, Charles Woodson would be up there. Desmond Howard would be up there. But in terms of making me the most ecstatic, happy, Glenn Rice may be number one.
Interesting.
Yeah, made me
when he went on that run. When he went on that run, Bill Frieder said, "I'm leaving for Arizona State, but I'll still coach the team." And athletic director Bo Schembechler said, "Nuh-uh, I want a Michigan man coaching a Michigan team." So he went with Steve Fisher, who really never went to Michigan. But we didn't argue with Bo. We didn't argue with Bo. And they won 6 games in a row. Glenn Rice was amazing. I would never want to shoot with him.
One of the best ever.
A man who definitely knew all about Dennis Rodman because he was his teammate. John Salley will be joining us, 4-time NBA champion. He was part of the Last Dance over the weekend. And lots to talk about with him. And then Lil Dicky of the FXX Hit Series Dave. And you at 844-204-RICH, your phone calls as well. Hour number 3 of the Rich Eisen Show, youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show, and Sirius XM channel 211 is how you can catch us. Put your hands together for the most recent Heisman Trophy winner, Kyler Murray of Oklahoma. Where is that trophy right now?
I sleep next to it.
It's on your nightstand?
Yeah.
So it's Good Morning Heisman every day?
Yeah, tight.
Seriously, it's right there next to, like there's a night table next to Kyler Murray's bed and the Heisman Trophy is resting there.
Yes, sir.
That's amazing.
Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night and you've had it in your arms, like you've been spooning with it by accident? Like,
no, there's no spooning.
There's no Heisman spooning? No. By the way, I would absolutely spoon with the Heisman if I won the Heisman. Now taking part in the Rich Eisen Show Throw Challenge, Kyler Murray, is this the first NFL Duke ball that you have thrown? That's an NFL. Oh my God, you won't even answer that. Wow. Go for it, Kyler. Go for it. That's one. First one, here we go. That's 2. Kyler Murray, everybody. That's 3. By the way, that's 4. Those are all Duke NFL footballs. Just wanted everyone to know that.
First overall pick. First overall.
That's 4. That's 5. Wow. These are the footballs Kurt Warner complained about. That's 6. Oh. That's 7. Whoa. That's 8. Oh, my goodness. Here, let's get some. Oh, no. Here we go. Keep going.
I'm on.
You got one more?
Hold on, this is getting bad.
Here we go. No. Yeah, it's getting bad. You got 7 for first 7. Good enough. 7 out of 10. Kyler Murray. Good to see you, man. Congratulations. He won the Heisman and it seems the Rich Eisen throwing contest in the same year. That's a first. No one could ever take that away from you.
This is the Rich Eisen Show.
I love this show.
It's a great show.
They're just so much fun.
Live from the Rich Eisen Show studio in Los Angeles.
I would rather go to battle with you two guys than two other guys.
Okay.
The Rich Eisen Show. Earlier on the show, Arizona Cardinals head coach Kliff Kingsbury. Four-time NBA champion John Salley. Coming up, Pro Football Hall of Famer Brett Favre. Plus, from the FXX comedy Dave, rapper Lil Dicky. And now, it's Rich Eisen.
Our final hour of the Rich Eisen Show here on this Tuesday in late April. We're live on NBCSN, Sirius XM Channel 211, YouTube.com/Rich Eisen Show. You can get our podcast every day on podcast1.com. There's really no reason to not listen to us either live or on demand. There's no excuse for it. Brett Favre was supposed to be on right now, but he just got off a golf course, and we pushed his phone call to tomorrow. Brett Favre, over under 78.
Oh.
He's told me what he has shot. Over under 78.
I know that Brett Favre's handicap is an 8.8.
How do you know that? You looked it up?
I looked it up. And so I'm going to say Brett shot under 78. I think he's sandbagging a little bit on his handicap.
He shot a 79. Brett Favre shot a 79. By the way. Could you imagine? I couldn't even imagine shooting below 80.
Oh, no.
I couldn't even imagine ever shooting below 80. No. Lil Dicky's going to be joining us in our third hour from Dave on FXX. Kliff Kingsbury, what a great conversation we had with the Arizona Cardinals head coach, whose home draft pad is so lush, so amazing. Lego even did a rendition of it. Other than the NFL draft, what we're talking about these days is The Last Dance on ESPN, the fantastic documentary. Jason Hare, the director, was on yesterday's show right at this time. And we go to our phone lines, and joining us is a guy who was all over that documentary this past weekend because what was documented was the highly documented hate between the Bulls and the Bad Boys Pistons years. And a guy who was on that team and then won championships with two other teams in the rest of his stellar NBA career. John Salley here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Spider Sally?
Man, I couldn't wait to get on this show. What's it been, 5 years since I begged you to be on your show?
Stop it, John. You've never been on this show before? Of course you have.
Man, I had to call the wife and send flowers. I babysitted your kids one day. Like, what the hell? Just to get on the Rich Eisen.
I am so glad that you are on, John. Let's put it that way. Is there anything you learned from the documentary over the weekend?
Yeah.
What'd you learn?
I learned, one, we didn't realize that we still are on the mind of Michael Jordan. So imagine being the greatest player to ever play in the NBA, and he goes to sleep thinking about you. I really appreciated that. We also we didn't know the inner workings. I know Jerry Krause was shady, but I didn't know what he did to Scotty, and I didn't know Scotty had such bad representation on doing a 7-year deal. But I knew Michael was that intense. I've been around Michael since. I went to visit Georgia Tech when they were playing North Carolina, and the next 2 years I was playing against MJ. So I've been with him, with frat brothers. I've been with him since 1982. So I knew he was intense. I know how it is to play. I know how it is to play with Magic in a pickup game and in a real game. So imagine what it's like to play against MJ in a pickup game. No referees. It's ridiculous. So we knew that, but that's the way we were in Detroit. We were mentally strong all the time, and I'm so happy. I don't know, calling us thugs and like that. Not really. If you played against Bob Lanier or I got hit in the head by Artis Gilmore, I still got the knot to this day. Maurice Lucas, come on. You got to be kidding me. We were just playing the game the way the game was played. It's just when he came in, the lead took a turn. So we were the last of the Mohicans.
Oh, hold on a minute. Okay, so you just gave me a lot to unpack right there, John. So when was the first time you met Jordan? You literally met him when you guys were teenagers, is what you're saying?
I was 18 years old. He was 19. I went to visit Georgia Tech. They played against them, and then the next year, you do things in the summertime. I was at 5-star basketball camp with Lenny Bias all the time. We would, if you go and play in North Carolina, I wind up going with David Falk, the same agent, a pro serve at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always in the midst of it. So, like, I did my first TV show, the John Salley show, in 1988, and my first guest was Michael Jordan. So I went to the hotel, picked him up. I sent you the footage. It's amazing. That was my guy. Still is. And for it to turn into what it turned into, everybody was thinking hate of Isaiah. People didn't realize Isaiah is from Chicago, and that was his city. And then Michael came and made the people in the city like the Bulls, but they were Isaiah fans. So it was not really hate. I think it was the attitude about playing against the Pistons. It really revved him. I'm gonna tell you one story, Rich.
Go for it, John.
I get on the Bulls, and we scrimmage once in a while. So all of a sudden, Phil sends Michael and Scotty home. We're going to talk to the guys. He goes, all right, we're playing for minutes. So guys are ready to play. Michael and Scotty are not there. Dennis is off to the side. Dennis is he's going to play. And Michael walks back in the gym. And he has on just the canvas shoes, low tops. He goes, no, Phil, no, I knew you were going to do a scrimmage. No. Put the Pistons over there. I tell you what, all three Pistons, Ron Harper, and give him somebody else against them. And he is playing against the teams he played against.
This is on the 90. This is on the 96 Bulls, right? When
on
you
the
got
96 Bulls,
right?
He's not taped. He may have on ankle socks. I'm not exaggerating. And Phil's like, you can't stop MJ from what he wants to do. All of a sudden, he gets a steal, and I'm lagging back. And I turn around, and I'm going to try to block your shot. And as I turn, he's in the air, and his middle section of his body is flying by my head, and he's like, block this female dog. And I like, what just happened? I go back to the hotel, which is across just over the fence from the practice facility, and I called my mother, and I said, Ma, I just saw the greatest player of all time. She said, it took you this long to say that? I go, I'm not going to say it publicly, but he just did some things I didn't see since I was playing in Brooklyn when we didn't get taped, and we wore Converse sneakers on concrete, and people were jumping 40 inches off the ground, 50 inches off the ground. This guy was amazing. Well, and I remember that to this day. Like, he was playing against the Pistons when he was playing in that pickup game.
That's what I'm saying. Is that John Salley here on the Rich Eisen show? Is that your teammates in '96? He's already got several trophies in the case. He's now back for the second time with the Bulls,
right?
After his White Sox hiatus. And he still, even though you're his teammate, and same with Ron Harper, he still views it Harper's a Cav who he had to get past, and then you're still a Piston that he had to get past, and he just that's part of his fire that he can't forget that you stood in his way and you prevented him from having more trophies in the case. That's how greedy he was. So how did that ever resolve itself? I guess you would just be somebody that you were never there at the beginning, and he'll hold that against you forevermore. Is that the way it is, John?
No,
essentially.
No. That's the best thing about MJ. MJ whole thing. He was going for championship 4, 5, 6, and if it didn't happen the way it happened with Scotty, it would have been what would have been 9 championships in 10 years. If they would have literally had the same mentality as the Boston Celtics and played them until the wheels fell off, no one would have. It would have literally been one of the greatest, second greatest franchise to the Boston Celtics according to championships. It would have. Well, the Lakers now, but
sure,
it was amazing on what he. And it's not a hate as a person. He loves the game of basketball, and And it's that competition. Dennis Rodman said it really well. We would play the game for free. You get paid for the other stuff.
Right.
And MJ would be in there, like, early in the morning. We would start practice at 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock, boom, boom, boom. All right, we're going to do 45 minutes of either this weight training, this stuff against the wall with the heavy balls. You're going to run. You're going to do that. And Scotty and Michael go in and watch SportsCenter. They run in and they sit on the table, or they get in ice, or they got on STEM or Heat, and they're watching SportsCenter while we're doing 45 minutes of working out. And I was like, I'm not complaining, but I'm wondering, wow, this is amazing. I said, how is that? They go, oh, Scotty and Michael get up at 7 and work out, and then they come to practice with us. I was like, you're kidding me. He goes, no. And Harp was like, and I'm at those workouts, and I still got to stay in here with y'all, out here with y'all. They worked out at 7 in the morning till 9. Then we'll come to practice, get tape, get treatment, then practice with us. That's how intense MJ was. Then after practice, shower, and MJ would get in the pool and do the workout in the pool.
And it's interesting, John, is that from the documentary, it does seem that that work ethic in terms of working out and making sure his body was strong was born out of the battles with the bad boys from what we saw. In the few minutes I have left, I do want to hit you on all of that. Did you know at the time, did you not shake hands? Did you want to shake hands? What in the world happened? Because Isaiah said that that Lambeer came up with that idea just as the 91 Eastern Conference Finals was ending.
I didn't agree with it in 91. I don't agree with it now. I understand they took a stand as a team, but as personally, remember this, even though we're a team, we're 12 individuals, 12 individual companies. I had to literally, I said, Chuck, put me back in the game. And he was like, come on, Sal, you can't get any more points. I go, you got to put me back because I don't want to be a part of what's about to happen. And they walked off, and then when the game was over, first person I went up to is Money. That's my frat brother. I dapped him up, and then I went to Horace and Scotty, who was standing together, to the coach. Everybody, it was Scott Hastings as well. All the guys on the team that was on the court. We went and we shook their hand. I just didn't think. Right then, Isaiah said it was an emotional time, and it was a knee-jerk reaction. I didn't think they were going to shake Bill Bear's hand, even if he would have stayed. But I just think it just me. It wasn't who I was. It's not who I am to my friend. Not who I am to my fraternity brother. I'm not who I am to. I'm just not that kind of person. I'm going to try to beat the wheels off you while I'm playing against you because I want to win. I don't want you to win. But after the competition, it's back to who's buying the first round and what club we going to. It's back to being human, and that's the difference. I can turn it on and turn it off.
Yeah, I guess. And Isaiah seems to think that's what kept him off the Dream Team. Would you agree with that?
I think I agree, and I agree. Part of it, Michael is like mad at Isaiah. No, come on. One, grow up. We're all above 50. That was then. 2, MJ really doesn't hold. He's competitive like that with anything. You can play anything against MJ, and he's going to be that same competitive person. You can pitch pennies. He's going to be, he's going to look, mine is cool. He's going to be that person. So it's not a bad person. That's MJ. That's why he's the greatest of all time. And I do think it hurt Isaiah on that point. I think because it should have been the one time they had a picture of Isaiah and Money shaking hands after that. No one could have said anything after, but they were able to use it against. And like Isaiah said, the only 2 people he heard ever said anything about the Dream Team was Scotty and Malone. And Isaiah should have been on that team. There's no way he shouldn't have been. Chuck Daly was the coach. So Dumas is on the squad. Yeah, great. But Isaiah was supposed to be on that team. But it's fine. He was on Dream Team too.
No, I know that, but the fact that he wasn't, so I guess that's what it was. It was personal against Isaiah that Jordan would be there and saying, "I'm fine playing with Dumars and for Chuck Daly, but I just can't have Isaiah on the
Michael
team.
Wouldn't do that. Michael was going to go no matter who you put on the court because he was going to represent America.
So then,
and as you really do see, it was the biggest Nike infiltration of Adidas ever. That's when they dropped posters. That's when the world got to see Michael Jordan and Nike. So he was going to go no matter what. The big thing was Magic was back. You remember? This was a year after. It was the next year after the HIV, and then it was after he handed the trophy off to Michael, and he had to get Larry Bird to play. So it was a big thing pushing the NBA, and somebody made that decision. It definitely wasn't a player. Players not saying, "Hey, I'm not going to be on Dream Team because Isaiah's on it." Then no, there's not that kind of hate. None. It can't be.
So who made the decision? Do you think, John?
God rest his soul, David Stern. What he wanted to promote as the NBA. I think the NBA marketing was a part of that. Like he's Isaiah is one of the greatest players that I've ever played against, and one of the greatest players that ever played in the NBA. But if in the stats that we're bragging about, Steph Curry, one of the greatest point guards to play, Isaiah had those numbers in year 6 and beyond. So and he never was. Isaiah was always there. The deal was somebody obviously didn't want to promote the mentality or what we had going on. They were moving on. Check out what they moved on to. They moved on to Phoenix. They moved on to the Utah Jazz. The Chicago Bulls were the staple. San Antonio was on the come up. Orlando was on the come up. They made a mistake by not putting Shaquille on the team. Those were mistakes. And if you were going to market, because that would have been the different team. But they needed to have Stockton on that team. We needed Chris Mullin on that team. We had an unbelievable look. Chris Mullin, one of my favorite players. People forgot he was on Dream Team. You needed that. So it was. I think it was a mess up. But I think the mess up came from the backlash from the world media about what happened with the Bulls.
John, I've got about 30 seconds left. Tell me about N-Stock. What are you doing with that, John?
N-Stock, and the word stock. I got into, I was in the medical supply business. You got to keep your business going when you're not making hook shots. And too bad for this pandemic, but it was definitely needed. And I thought, I'm going to make sure the state of California has everything we need. We make everything in America, face shields, masks, hand sanitizer. So everybody stay home, listen to the Rich Eisen Show.
I love you, John.
That's what I'm saying.
You're good.
Right?
You're good.
Check it out online.
You're a good man. And online at nstock.com. Is that what it is?
Nstock Medical.
Nstock Medical. John, let's get you back on in the next couple weeks. I'd love to keep chatting with you about all this. You're the best. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, man. One love.
Right back at the John Salley on Twitter. All right, lots to hit on that. Put a pin in it. When we come back, Lil Dicky right here on The Rich Eisen Show. That was quite a bit right there with John Salley, huh?
Man, oh, man.
And he played with them in 96.
Yeah.
Played with them in 96.
Then won another title with the Lakers.
Right. Then won another title with the Lakers and Phil. That's his 4. 2 with the Pistons, 1 with the Bulls, 1 with the Lakers.
Pretty good handful.
Right. Look at that picture right there. Look at Musburger on the left. Chuck Daly in the back there. Chuck. May you rest his soul. David Stern made that decision. Told Isaiah stay home. No Shaq either, right? They took Leitner over Shaq.
It was Leitner over Shaq. Well, Leitner was the
reigning Naismith, right?
Poster boy. Yeah, he was everything that year. Duke had just won.
Shaq was a baby.
Duke had just won back-to-back championships, and so.
I think we're going to start hearing from Shaq, right?
I think the Dream Team episodes are coming up next.
Yeah.
I saw him in Orlando when Seton Hall played in the one of the tournaments. Shaq came out and it was like he was already you could tell.
Yeah, I think the business world of Michael, the Michael business, world and how he changed that is coming up.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's going to be amazing. The brand.
Look, as Spider said, the Dream Team was a chance to grow basketball globally. And you have to have the face of the league over there. So if Michael Jordan doesn't want someone on the team,
you're not going.
And if you're saying,
but he said that Jordan would never have said that. But he said Jordan would have never have said that. I'm not going if Isaiah.
No, you don't have to.
You're watching Michael Jordan in these documentaries. You think he really wouldn't have said that? He still holds a grudge 30 years later.
Well, I mean, but he says that I'm not going to play for God and country. That's a different ball of wax.
I also think Nike scratched a pretty big check.
Could be.
Be my guess.
I don't know, and we'll see how much of this actually is in there. I mean, everything's been talked about so far, pretty much. And the director, Jason Hare, says that they're going to talk considerably about his hiatus and what was behind it and what wasn't behind it and what the rumors were that they're all going to be hit. Is what he said.
Just remember, Reebok sponsored the warm-up jackets for the gold medal ceremony, and all the Nike guys put the flags over the symbol.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back. Lil Dicky's on hold. We're excited to have him. Don't go anywhere. Great chat with John Salley. If you missed any of it, go to our YouTube page, youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show. Please hit that subscribe button if you don't mind. And then you can also go down a wormhole. 5+ year history of our show is sitting right there. And that includes the time, I think it was about 3 some odd years ago when he came on this program, sat here in person.
Studio,
it was great to see him in person. And now his hit show, Dave, on FXX. Season 1 finale is tomorrow night. It airs the next day, streams the next day on Hulu, where the streaming numbers have been off the charts, over 5 million more per episode. And the man himself, Lil Dicky, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Right here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, bud? How you been?
I'm good, man. How are you, Rich?
I'm better for talking to you. The number of people when we was at episode 4, right, Chris?
Yeah, we're in episode 4, so we're co-stars with Dave.
We're co-stars with Dave Bird, a.k.a. Lil Dicky.
You guys stole the show. You stole the show.
Well, you know what? It's very rare that I ever scream the words out that you and Jeff Schaefer, the creator of the show, asked me to scream out. So I don't know. I kind of stepped out of my shell a little bit on that one, Dave.
You handled it with poise, though. I honestly thought you did a perfect job. But we kept saying, thank God for Rich, because he really did the perfect thing for that montage.
I appreciate that. How has this all worked out for you, man? This has been quite something. I wonder what it's like from your perspective.
Well, honestly, it's been hard for me to really soak it in, because only Saturday did I hand in the season finale. And up until Saturday, I've just been working on every episode, almost up until the week before the episode comes out. So it's I've been kind of just still really working hard on it. And only the past 3 days do I feel like a free man and able to soak it all in. But it's definitely a dream come true. I'm very happy that, even as a guy, I'm a huge TV fan, and some of my favorite shows ever, I didn't even find out about until their second or third season. You know what I mean? So it's TV's kind of weird like that. So I'm very happy that people are already watching early.
Okay, so how real to what this is in your life? This is a fictionalized version, but tell me what's real on this. What's close to real?
It's definitely some things are word for word exactly how they happen. Some things are loosely based. Some things are totally fictitious. It's very all just kind of a hodgepodge. But I don't know if you want to talk about something that's specific. I really was born with a penis that needed surgery. My hype man Gator really does have bipolar disorder. There's a lot of things that I could say that's real. And things that I could say that's kind of based on something that really happened. And the things that I could be that never happened. But man, it would be funny if it did.
So Gator in the show is your real life hype man, right? And
yeah.
So how did you know he could act, Dave?
I had a hunch. Like, if you meet this guy, anyone who meets him is like, wow, who the heck is that guy? He's like a character, like he's very dynamic as a person.
Yes.
And he almost carries himself like he is famous before even being famous. Like, people kind of thought he was famous, like, just because of how he was. So he's just like, you just know people where I never acted either. So it's like, how did I know I could act? I just knew I was a charismatic person that, was capable. And I felt the same way about Gator.
Well, I mean, you knew you could act. I mean, how does one become Lil Dicky? The story is pretty impressive. I mean, the real life story about how you started off and started out, for those who may not know, can you recount how you did your first couple videos?
Yeah, so my whole life I wanted to be a comedian. That was like my number one dream, and I thought, how can I get noticed for being funny? And like, I didn't know anybody in the entertainment industry to like hand a script to. I didn't know how to make a scene or like a sketch or something. But I had the software on my computer to make music, and I always kind of rap growing up. And I didn't see many people doing funny rap music, so I started rapping just to be noticed to be a comedian. And the rapping just got better and better. And it caught up to the comedy side of it, to where like I'm like I've become, like, in my mind, I feel like I'm one of the best rappers in the world. And I put my first video online, and I've been working on it for like 2 years without showing anybody. And I finally was ready to put my first video out. And the second I posted it, it went to like it went viral. Like, it got 1 million views in the first 24 hours. So that day will always kind of be the best day of my life, because I feel like it's the day that I like really learned I am who I thought I was. And it's an irreplaceable feeling. So
but the way you shot it, though, didn't you like walk up to people's doors and say, can I use your house, use your boat, use your, didn't you?
Yeah, that was another video. That video came about a year after that first video. And that was called Save That Money. And that was my first like big mainstream, like all the first videos I did, I didn't even know anybody that made music. So I had to like go online and steal other rappers' beats and like make songs over like a Drake beat, or like, you know what I mean? Like stuff that I didn't even own the rights to, that I couldn't even monetize. And I finally like got enough of a following to where producers could send me beats, and like that Save That Money song you just referenced is one of my first original songs, and probably my first big mainstream moment. Like, the first stuff that I put out was like very internet-y, but Save That Money was like on the radio, and like, yeah, I pretty much made a whole music video for completely free by just like talking people into letting me use their things.
Yeah, and Fetty Wap, Snoop Dogg, Chris Brown, Ariana Grande, Justin Bieber, they all follow, correct, in your career?
Yeah, no, I mean,
this is amazing.
When you say it like that,
I left some out. Ed Sheeran, Shawn Mendes, Brain.
Yeah.
I've left a few out.
Yeah, there's a lot, I guess. No, I'm fortunate enough to where like I've these people at the end of the day are like all just like normal people. So when I meet them, I think I just establish a good rapport and relationship, and we stay in touch. And then if I need them on a song, I think they all trust my creative vision. So I'm just very lucky that everyone, I guess, seemingly believes in me.
You sure do. Lil Dicky here on the Rich Eisen Show, and yet we still have not been able to pull off the caper that I was trying to cultivate a few years ago, because you're a diehard Philadelphia sports fan, and at the time Andy Reid had just left for the Kansas City Chiefs. Trying to get you to do a rap song and video with Andy Reid called "Time's Yours," because that's how he always starts his press conference.
He's still on the "Time's Yours" video, huh?
You know what? I'm not going to give it up. I think it's too damn good. Too damn good.
He's still doing "Time's Yours" in Kansas City?
Every press conference, period, starts with him giving an update on injuries, and then looks at the gathered member of the media and say, "Time's yours." Every single one of them. He's been doing it, and now he's won a Super Bowl.
I was so happy when he won. No other team winning has made me that happy.
Because not even your own Philadelphia Eagles a couple years ago?
No other team winning. No non-Eagles team winning.
I see.
Brought me that joy.
Because of Andy Reid.
Yeah, I mean, that man deserves one. Like, I think he's one of the best coaches ever, and I don't know. My takeaway from Andy Reid is not one of failure in Philadelphia. It's one of like, oh my God, that man kept us relevant for like over a decade straight.
He sure did. What do you think of the current Eagles situation? I don't know how much you've been paying attention to it, since you said you've been just focused on editing your show and putting it all together. But I don't know.
Are you talking about Jalen Hurts in the second round? Is that what you're talking about?
That's what I'm talking about. What'd you make of that one?
Yeah. Here's the reality: is I wanted CeeDee Lamb, so it's like that was my main goal going into it, and then add to the fact that the Cowboys got him. It's like a double whammy, and then Jalen Hurts in the second round. Like, yeah, I don't understand. I don't get it. And I really don't even the rationale from Howie is like I don't think he can. It's like what is the best case scenario here? I don't know what it is. What is it that Carson Wentz gets hurt and then you have a good backup? Because I just don't. I mean, which is I guess I don't know. It's frustrating because I just feel like we have more needs. But even if he does put him out 12 to 15 plays a game or whatever, and they run we use a second round pick on like a gadget player, I don't know. But maybe they know something I don't.
How about this? How about this? Let's have a conversation here about this because that's the way the Eagles won their Super Bowl. Was Wentz couldn't answer the bell, and that the backup was so good, you got the biggest football moment of your entire life. And now here they are to try and make sure that if it happens again, they're prepared for it, and Eagles fans are wondering what's their malfunction.
Yeah, but I don't think Jalen Hurts is even going to beat out Nate Sudfeld for the backup. So it's like this guy's not even going to be the backup quarterback this year. And I like Nate. I think he's a good backup quarterback, and I believe in him. So then you're thinking, if he can't even be the backup this year, it's like, and I think we're in win now mode. I think we're trying to win right now.
By the way, that is a Lil Dicky hot take that Jalen Hurts won't even beat out Nate Sudfeld. That would be a problem, don't you think?
I think they love Nate. I think they really love Nate. I'm not even kidding. I think it's like they believe in him. He's been in their system for like 4 or 5 years. He got hurt last year, but people were loving him. Anytime I see him in the preseason, I'm very impressed.
So I guess before I let you go, where do you stand on the subject of Embiid and Simmons being able to play together?
I think they can. They're both too competitive and too good and elite. Like they're both like people always say like, oh, Ben, he's never going to shoot. It's like even if in a conservative mind space, if Ben Simmons doesn't start shooting jump shots consistently for another 5 years, like think about that. Not next year, 5 years from now. He's still only 28 years old at that point. And he's like, you know what I mean? So it's like he's so young that I don't know what the fuss is about. It's like he's going to start shooting eventually, and they're so chip on their shoulder like winners, I believe. And they were a lucky bounce away from maybe beating the champions last year. So I think they're in a good spot. They just need more shooters. And I don't think I don't think the issue is Embiid and Simmons. I think it's just like the pieces around them. And if they're not ready yet, then they're not ready yet. But like they're going to be ready. And in 3 years from now, they're both going to be like 26, 27 years old.
So you don't think it's an issue of them meshing with each other because that was the conversation before the season got postponed for the moment. That was the whole conversation.
No, I don't think it's an issue. I really don't because they're both just lockdown defenders, and they need other pieces that complement them. But I don't think those two guys I think they're like a young Shaq and Penny.
So before I let you go, the season finale tomorrow night. Other than clearly a special guest appearance by Nate Sudfeld, what should we expect on tomorrow night's season finale, Lil Dicky?
I would say my main comment is expect the unexpected. Like I could give you like 10 million guesses as to what happens, even if you watched every episode, and you would never even come close to guessing it. It's like you have no idea, and I think it's one of the most insane, revolutionary things that's ever been put on television. I think it's like my masterpiece.
Well, it's just the first season. You can't peak too soon. You can't do that.
Well. It's going to be. I agree, but it's my masterpiece to this date, and it's going to be. I don't know. It's going to go down as a classic episode of television for sure.
Classic episode of television on FXX tomorrow night, 10 Eastern time. Thanks for joining. Thanks for calling in, man.
Thanks for having me, Rich. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Let's get you back on soon. Okay. Be well.
Okay.
Take it easy. That's Dave Bird, aka Lil Dicky, here on the Rich Eisen Show.
He is diehard Philadelphia.
He is so funny too, man.
That show's great. I love it.
That show is very, very funny. And it just streams like crazy.
Yeah,
it's setting records.
Yeah, it's live on FXX on Wednesdays.
Right, and then Hulu.
Up the next day on Hulu.
All right, so let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll clear out the phone banks, and we'll set up the rest of the week right here on this Rich Eisen Show that you can catch on youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show, and then from 1 to 3 Eastern right here on NBCSN. All righty, everybody. All righty.
I hum this song all day, by the way.
Say it again?
This song is always in my head.
That song right there?
Yeah.
Well, we hear it nonstop.
Nonstop.
So you're just walking around
I'm
doing...
home, like, doing stuff with Cage. We're working on, like, we're big into puzzles right now. And I'm just like, I tap it. And I hear it in my head all day.
That's not bad, right?
That's actually a good thing.
Is that parenting? Is that what parenting's all about?
thing.
You just get stuff stuck in your
Hey, do you want to rent your home? Of course you do, and it can be hard work. And here's what's easy. Bundling policies with Geico. Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowners or renters insurance along with your auto policy. And it's a great thing, too, because you already have so much to do around your house, don't you? If you're just sitting around humming the Rich Eisen, the new Rich Eisen show theme. Go to geico.com, get a quote, see how much you could save. It's Geico easy. Visit geico.com today. That's geico.com. And you could get our podcast every day. People listening on Podcast One every single day. More and more people are listening on Podcast One, and we love, man. I'll tell you what, man. Norm Pattis, who runs Podcast One, created it. He just wants that basketball season back in the worst way. He's standing there with his program and clapping his hands with it. It was ready to go. Lakers are ready to do it.
I know that nobody really knows anything in terms of when things are coming back. Stephen A. said he thinks it's July for the NBA.
I only hope so, man. That would give us 2 more months to try and figure out how we can live life with this virus and see who's had it and who has it. And I mean, you're reading right now, and we'll take some calls at 844-204-RICH. You're reading right now about President Trump speaking at West Point, right? And in preparation of that the graduating members of the class of 2020 have to be flown in and stay in quarantine separately for 14 days. So everybody knows that everybody who is, and then they have to be tested, right? They've got, I think I read this. So essentially the way that cadets are being prepared for the commencement address is a way that I guess a sports league would have to do it. But this is just one commencement address. Could you imagine it's an entire league of people? That's what has to be done. We'll talk about it more in a second. So, 2 great chats there in our third and final hour of the Rich Eisen show here. Let's hit the Wayback Machine in the early part of the hour when we had John Salley on. We could have spoken to him all hour long, and he would have been telling as many stories that he told Chuck Daly, put me back in the game because I don't want to be on the bench walking off and not shaking hands. I want to be around the opponent, so I will have no choice but to dap up who he says called Money. Was his nickname for Jordan, his fraternity brother, he said.
Yeah, it's appropriate.
And everyone else is that he wanted Daly to put him back in the game so he could be on the floor and shake hands because he'd already heard what was being cooked up on the bench. Wanted no part of that. And he thinks that Jordan would have never said to USA Basketball, I don't want Isaiah on this team, and I ain't departing if he's on the team. He would never have said that. I asked him point blank who made the decision. He said, may his soul rest in peace, David Stern.
Hopefully it gets into that this week. It looks like the Dream Team episodes are coming up soon.
Right. Well, I mean, we're up to that. We're up to 91, essentially. He just won his first championship, and 92 was the year where that Olympic team took place. The original Dream Team that everyone was talking about back in 1992. But, of course, the one thing that leapt out at me was Jordan and his workout regimen, along with Pippen. And, you know, what leapt out at me was none other than John Salley saying what they were doing, Pippen and Jordan, while the rest of the team was working out because they'd already gotten their workouts in at 7 in the morning.
Watching Sports Center.
Oh, my gosh. So, 96,
If they're
it's in
watching
96
the early morning replays,
they're
Mitch,
saying, who's this new kid from Redding, California with the head of cabbage? I walked in there February of 1996.
I don't think they knew where Redding, California was.
They probably
With all
weren't
due
saying that at all.
respect.
No, I'm just saying is that's when I started.
Yeah.
The end of that basketball season is when I started doing all my sports centers.
Do you remember your first 2 a.m. though? How long after you got there was?
It started
you
right
got
away.
thrown on the 2 a.m.
I got
show.
started. I arrived there in late February, and the conversations were when I could go on the ESPN News had not yet been created. Anybody who had just been hired got put straight on ESPN News before they got on SportsCenter.
Right.
So I was, I think, one of the last hires that didn't get thrown right on ESPN News. And I was observing. That's what was on my schedule. It said observation. So I observed sports centers.
You did that for how long?
2 weeks. And my first sports center was a Sweet 16, I believe, mid-March. No, I think it was, I guess, the round of 32.
Yeah, with Larry Beal.
Me and Larry Beal.
Yeah. Who was the first one you observed? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I do remember one of the first ones I observed was, this was back when Berman would do a handful of sports centers. He would just
pop in
and do like 4 sports centers and then not do any the rest of the year.
It must be nice.
And I remember I was there and I watched him walk in, and it struck me when I observed him, and I observed Dan and Keith for a couple.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if I observed Kilborn. But it struck me with those 3 guys, and then later on with Stewart, and then obviously Craig and others who were highly successful at the craft, that the people that I saw off camera was the same as the person I saw on camera. Right. There was no affectation.
Yeah. My announcer voice.
There was none of that.
Right.
None of that at all. So, and it struck me that in my career, having met anybody, I mean, Al Michaels, for instance. That's the guy.
Same guy.
It's honestly like name anybody. Collinsworth, just Tirico, just naming people who are, who are colleagues of on NBCSN right now.
Joe Buck.
They're all honestly Costas, the same person that you meet off air is on air. And that's a level of success as far as I'm concerned. It's not an act. And Stewart was not an act at all. 844-204-RICH. Let's take some phone calls here on the Rich Eisen Show. Carrie in Rancho Palos Verdes, California, just down the road. By the way, I'm like saying to be natural, and I just went Brockmeyer. I just went my whole voice right there.
You kind of have to with that.
What's up, Carrie?
Hi. I'm calling to talk about the Jets.
All right, CARI. Okay, what's going on? What do you think?
Well, you haven't talked about it, so I was just wondering what you thought of Mekhi Becton.
Oh, my gosh. A perfect choice. I loved it.
I know, but you haven't talked about it, so I was like, what's up with this? I was so excited that they got him.
I do know that the name of the show is my name, but I don't know, and I just didn't know how many Jets fans around the country would want to,
I am a true Jets fan.
Okay,
I've
very
watched
good.
you ever since ESPN days, and been a Jets fan, born and raised in L.A., but I've always been a Jets fan. Don't ask me, it's a long story. But I was just thinking, this is the greatest pick they've ever done.
Well, look, DeBrickashaw Ferguson and Nick Mangold were just in terms of the history, right? That they've been,
right.
Just in terms of that history, it is something that they have done before. I have the same feeling. The kid is just 6'7", 364, and he is so athletic. He is a brawler. He is a mauler.
5'1" in the 40? I mean, my gosh.
I know. I don't know, because I don't know the Jets picks off the top of my head. And interestingly enough, I just don't know if this is to mess with me or not. Or it's I'm on the ESPN. Hold on a second. I'm on ESPN.com right now using their tool for all 32 teams to call up their draft choices. The Jets are not on here. The Jets are not on here. They have 31 teams on here. And the Jets are not on ESPN.com right now. But I just knowing, we
have suffered through so many things, and especially last year was so bad. And I was thinking, oh my God, they made a really good first round, pick.
I know.
And I look forward to listening to you because you were going to talk about it, and you haven't. I'm like, Did we not make a good pick?
No. Here, Carrie, I appreciate the call, and I love your energy. Please call back. No, the kid Denzel Mims, I know they chose him, the wide receiver out of Baylor.
Right.
And so when you go with a lineman and then a receiver, that's serving your quarterback.
Yes.
And then you hit the offensive line a little bit more.
Hit the defensive line. They got a safety from Cal, Ashton Davis.
Right.
At 68. So
I honestly have no idea how these people are going to pan out. But when your two best players are your quarterback and your running back on offense, right? You support them, which is better than what Green Bay seemed to be doing. And they took the kid from James Madison in the 4th round. Florida International in the 4th round. And I asked that of Daniel the other day, and he's like, hey, Sam Darnold had mono. You need a backup quarterback. Let's go to Tom in Connecticut. You're here on the Rich Eisen Show. What's up, Tom?
Hello, Rich. How are you, man?
What's going on, sir? What's on your mind?
Hey, well, I know it's sacrilege during the run of The Last Dance, but I'm a 59-year-old lifetime Knicks fan, and I just want no part of this thing. I'm not going to watch 1 second of it. I lived through the nightmare back in the 90s, and it just I just have a hard time calling Jordan the greatest of all time when his toughest competition during that run was Patrick Ewing in the CBA All-Stars. It's awfully convenient when they start winning when the dynasties end, Pistons, Lakers, Celtics, and they never beat a great team from the West.
Tom.
I mean, Kareem has 6 titles. Russell has 11. I'm sure a bunch of the other Celtics have 6 or more that played with Russell. And, I would take Kobe. He won 3 with Shaq, and then he won 2 with, Pau Gasol and Meta World Peace. And to me, that's far more impressive than winning it with another top 50 guy in Pippen. And,
Tom.
They're just so many things that there's, and it just those games against the Knicks. There are just so many of those nights where it was.
Tom, let me just jump in here for a second.
Yeah, sure.
Let me just jump in here for a second. Number one, I hope you're happy and healthy with your family, and I hope that's all good.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank goodness.
Yes.
So that gives me clearance to basically ask you if you're also quarantining with somebody named Bitter. Are you quarantining with? Because first of all, you are missing out. This documentary is amazing. And it is it is reminiscent of a time when the Knicks were good to great, and that there are some teams that are standing in the way of your team from being a champion, and that happens. The Knicks are not alone in this. I would absolutely disagree with the sense that the Jordan Bulls never beat a great team out west when you've got the first team that they just whipped on that you just saw in 91 was Magic Johnson and James Worthy on a Lakers team, okay? Clyde Drexler on a Blazers team. You've got Malone and Stockton on a Jazz team. I mean, come on. These are some all-time great players and are I don't know what else to say.
Each team had one.
And then you have to beat the teams that are in front of you in the generation in which you're playing. And the Knicks couldn't do it.
I'm a Giant fan, so
our
I know
team
all about
couldn't do it.
Just who's in front of you.
Right.
So,
our team couldn't do it, Tom. So here's what I will say to you. Is that you should watch this stuff. It is amazing. It is amazing. It's well done. It does, and it's something that I think you as a diehard basketball fan will enjoy. And take your anger and your angst and your upsetness and focus it on the owner of the Knicks, who I hope has gotten over the coronavirus. That's what you should do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It goes well beyond that. And right. Just
focus it. Put your anger where it should be focused. And thank you for the call. That's Tom in Connecticut. The town of Connecticut that he's living in is Bitter, Connecticut.
Whoa.
Come on. We heard that too. I've heard that the Jordan teams didn't beat a significant all-time great team out west. That's Magic Johnson and James Worthy that they
and think about all of the Hall of Famers that Jordan prevented from winning a championship.
I know.
Utah Jazz.
Ewing, Stockton, Malone, Gary Payton, Reggie Miller, Dikembe Mutombo, all these great NBA players.
Hakeem Olajuwon won only when he
Clyde Drexler.
Right.
They won when Jordan retired, okay?
Right.
David Robinson. Let's relax.
I mean, Jordan is the all-time greatest.
I think
and
so. I think so.
I told you when The Last Dance was first announced, and then when they re-announced it moving up, I told you that it would bring the crazy out of people who need a reminder of who Jordan was and why he's the greatest, and that everybody that we're seeing now. And the problem is that then you start by saying it comes across that you're slagging on people like LeBron, who is an all-time great. Honestly, the only person I think that has come anywhere close to Jordan is Kobe. That's it. He's the only guy in my mind that's come close to Jordan in terms of winning and in terms of attitude. And in terms of winning with different players and different times. Honestly, that's the only person I think that comes even in remotely close to Jordan's area code, wouldn't you say?
In the modern era, I agree.
Because
LeBron's a different type of player.
LeBron's a different type of player. But it's also interesting that LeBron, how he's played the game and how he was criticized for not taking the big shots at the end. Yeah. We just saw in the last episode of The Last Dance that it was Paxson who took the Bulls home, and it was Jordan passing the ball as opposed to shooting it and letting others take care of it. LeBron defers to his guys all the time, right. And to the point to the detriment of his reputation in the beginning of his career. But the fact that he's gone to championships and lost is the same way that many people argue Brady's not the greatest compared to Montana. But in terms of going to championships in this day and age and winning with a ton of teams, LeBron is a GOAT. He's an all-time great who deserves to be mentioned, in the same breath as Kobe and Jordan, of course. But in terms of, and the difference is Jordan would never have played on a, super team, ever.
Right. This would be
hold on. His super team was Pippen and Rodman, and he would collect great players.
Right. But he didn't leave. They came to him.
Yes.
And he didn't join the Pistons after not being able to beat them twice in a row.
Well, that's Durant.
And the difference between Montana and Brady has more Super Bowl wins than Joe Montana. This is if LeBron had 8 championships but lost 4 of them, then you could say, well, LeBron's probably the greatest because he's got a bigger number.
But you know the reason why people are talking about Montana and Bradshaw?
Except that Tom has now been to more than twice as many as those
Hey, man,
guys.
you need to tell me. NFL Network's been on the air since 2003, and half of the Super Bowls we've covered have had Brady and Belichick in it. And that's not an exaggeration. That's the facts.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's over now.
I love you said it's over now.
It's over now.
I don't know.
No, it's over in Peyton.
Hey, you heard Sean Payton say that Brady being there makes the Buccaneers a candidacy for the Super Bowl, and that's a fact. That's a fact. And don't sleep on Bill Belichick's ability to find something.
No.
Dude,
he's pulling the rabbit out.
Again, we're knocking on wood that the season goes on time. And, I saw on Florio Pro Football Talk, he put out an article, I think this morning, pegging that there are potential Super Bowl dates set for the last Sunday in February, and the Pro Bowl not happening, depending on and then a 16-week season with no bye weeks. There's going to be a lot. The schedule is going to be coming out before May 9th, is I think what the commissioner told me a couple weeks ago. And there'll be different iterations of it. But I'm knocking on wood that we have this thing. And I see in the crystal ball.
Belichick's like the Prestige movie.
November.
He's gonna pull it out.
I see in November. I see in the crystal ball, Christopher, you coming in here, you looking at me, talking in that microphone and saying, man, how about that Jared Stidham?
I don't know if he's going to do that.
How about that Stidham, man?
I don't know if he's
I'm going to come in here with a Studham shirt, like
Studham.
I don't know.
Yeah, Studham, Massachusetts.
Studham,
Mass. There's a new town in New England, Studham, Mass. Yeah. And
I hope so.
And nobody out there, even though the Tampa Bay Gronkaneers are on your screen. Nobody out there
look at
can
that.
sit here and say that that's not possible. That Belichick just drafted a whole bunch of players who are like Swiss Army knives who can play all three phases practically, right? They're all going to be great on special teams, and they're all going to know how to do their job, and they're going to be out there, and the Bills are going to start, and all their fans are going to strut in, like Vince McMahon, like a Vince McMahon GIF. Okay, they're going to stroll in, right? Here comes Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, and we're strolling in, and there's Bill.
Boom.
With
drinking orange juice.
With his new quarterback in the new hometown of Studham, Massachusetts.
Oh, my God, the Patriots
I'm
just beat the
telling you.
Bills. It's like,
don't sleep on that.
I mean, I hope
people.
so.
I mean, it's Bill.
I want to thank today's guests, Kliff Kingsbury, John Salley, and Lil Dicky. That's what we love about this show. We're all over the map. We give you a little bit of something, a little taste, to wet your beak a little bit. And I want to thank Greg Cosell, who was on in our first hour as well. If you missed any of that, go to our YouTube feed, youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show. Our final poll results over there, Christopher, the best or the most memorable home draft setup was
most memorable.
Bill, what do you got?
Kliff Kingsbury, 55%. Mike Vrabel, 15%.
Very good. Yeah, and check out the Lego version of it as well. Tomorrow's show, John Elway will be on the program, and Brett Favre, who shot a 79 today. He's scheduled to appear as well, and you should as well. That'll wrap it up from the Rich Kingsbury edition of the Rich Eisen Show. Use Sam Farmer's phrase. We'll see you Wednesday.